council this evening, Tuesday, May 9th, 2017, and we'll open our city council meeting. We recognize many that are with us this evening. We welcome you. We've got a number of proclamations tonight, and I know some of you are here for that, so we'll move forward on that. Again, reminding everyone that we are recording the proceedings this evening. We have MCM, McMinnville Community Media, that's recording this, and then we've got KLYC that is doing a direct streaming this evening. Not that it is a part of that, but recognizing if you put your telephones on silent and to keep from interfering with the proceedings of tonight, we would ask you to do that. We're going to start this evening with our Pledge of Allegiance, and we've asked Councilor Menke to lead us in that. Thank you, Kelly. We're to that point this evening where we have an invitation to citizens for public comment. And so anyone may come before the council and talk on subjects other than a topic that's already on the agenda, a matter in litigation, quasi-judicial land matter, or a matter that's scheduled for public hearing at some future date. And I may limit those conversations depending how many we have. So do we have anyone that would like to approach the council tonight? Okay, go ahead, sir. If you'd introduce yourself and sign yourself in.
Hello, my name's Mark Ritchie. I'm from McMinnville. I'm also called Duck and the Camouflage Knight.
Have a seat and go ahead and address the council.
The first matter that I have here was last year we were in here to see about a fortified alcohol ban on 3rd Street. We gave geographical areas of where we wanted the alcohol banned and sold, and you didn't listen to the voice of the people. Now, instead of a geographic area we're going to lay out, where I'm going to tell you the businesses that the fortified alcohol needs to be removed from. The first business is Circle K on 3rd Street. The second business is Center Market, and that's right there on Baker behind us. And the other third store is the Red Apple Market on Lafayette. Now, to pull the fortified alcohols from those stores would eliminate the drunkenness on the 3rd Street area. Problem solved. Issue number 2 is demolition permits. We need to move like Portland did. No more demolition. What we need is deconstruction permits. If you're going to run the demo permits, they should be higher priced. Now, in a deconstruction permit, that stuff does not land up in our landfill. And the thing is, we want about 40% of all the materials to be recycled to supply jobs on the construction site. If they want to choose to demo it and throw it in the dump, charge them for it. Now, the third issue I have online is under section USC number 8. Any U.S. citizen that knowingly assists an illegal alien, provides them with employment, food, water, or shelter has committed a felony. City, county, or state officials that declare their jurisdictions to be open cities, counties, or states are subject to arrest, as are law enforcement agencies who choose not to enforce this law. Now, police officers who ignore officials who violate section 8 USC are committing a section 274 federal felony. Now, furthermore, according to Federal Immigration and National Act of 1952, if you live in a city, county, or state that refuses to enforce the law for whatever reason, the officials making these rules are financially liable and any crime committed within their jurisdiction of an illegal alien. Now, I want to reference this as the year, a year or two ago, that Parker Moore was stabbed in the 7-Eleven parking lot by an illegal alien. Now, if you want to get sued by their family, I would suggest to read this Section 8 USC, because that will cover you of liability and the other family who had that member stabbed to sue you. But those illegal aliens have no rights under no citizenship. Amen.
Thank you for your comments. Do we have anyone else that would like to address the council tonight? Go ahead. Welcome, Bill.
Thank you. You come down my street and you put the sewers in, and we cooperated with all we could do to make it good for the city and for the contractors. When you guys finished that job, the rains came, and we had 3 months to get the job done. There's not a contractor that would do it. And so now they take away the $250 incentive they gave us, and now they're charging us $50 a month. This is the most, why don't the city cooperate with the people?
Bill,
You know what? All the people on my street are in the same boat as I am. Why don't you just do it and straighten things out instead of just let them fester?
So I'd ask you to sign in, and then, Mike, do you have any comments? Usually we don't have a dialogue, but would you have any comments?
Not at this time, unless there are questions from the council regarding the sewer lateral program.
We talked about this at the dinner meeting for a few minutes this evening, council. Any questions of Mike or of Bill?
I have a quick question, Mr. Mayor.
Okay.
He raises a point that I wasn't aware of during the dinner meeting, but that the timing of this led into a rainy season. Probably wasn't the best time for doing the work. If that's, is there a way we can meet him halfway if that's an area of contention in order to extend out the fee or something like that because of the construction window just really wasn't favorable?
I wanted to get the job done, and the job would have been done now, except 3 contractors. I got 3 quotes, but they can't do it till the property dries out.
Yeah.
The guy next door to me, it cost him $12,000, and they had equipment stuck all over his place.
Any other comments?
I got one. When did the clock start ticking on your, when did you get the notice that you needed
The
to
3
replace
months has passed that I had what I would have got the $250.
It was December 30th.
And now they're talking about the $50 a month that they fine you every month.
it? And you're aware that if you
Yes.
do that in 10 months, you don't pay?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think they should just extend it. I mean, people want to do it. Why don't the city cooperate with them and help them get it done? Where's the $250 going if they don't give it to the people that put in the sewer lines? Where does that money go? Whose pocket does it go in, for one thing? I don't know. Where does it go? Can you answer that?
I cannot. I was just briefed on it this evening.
Any other comments?
Yeah, but the 3 months, if you get it done in 3 months, you got a $250 incentive. Well, instead of extending our time, they just took the $250 and started the fines going at $50 a month, which I think is ridiculous, and I don't think you're cooperating. I pay my taxes here, I live here, I obey the law, I live a clean life. When I go to the mayor, he yells at me for crying out loud.
Any other questions? Okay. Thank you for your testimony. Bill.
Okay, thank you.
Any other comments this evening, if you could?
My name is Sheila Allison, and I am a geologist and a professor of geology. I have been giving talks. Was the keynote speaker at the preparedness fair that you had last week. I've given these talks all over the state on the earthquake risk that we have here in Oregon, which is very significant. We only started learning about it in the 1980s, and it's become, through scientific evidence, it's become apparent that it is a certainty, that it's not just if it happens, it's when it will happen. And we have a risk of a large subduction earthquake greater than anything we have ever witnessed in this country, more like what happened in Japan. In fact, exactly what happened in Japan. The only difference is the United States isn't nearly as prepared as Japan is for that size earthquake. Okay, here's the historical record going back 10,000 years, puts us in a position, we know how often that they've happened, and they have happened on the order of every 300 to 500 years for the last 10,000 years, which is as far back as we go. They happen every 300 to 500 years. The last one happened in the year 1700. So 317 years ago. We're right on the edge of having this. So I was disturbed to hear that the council was deciding to get rid of the position of emergency management for the city. And I am a resident of this city, and I have family here, and I deeply care about this Yamhill County and McMinnville especially. I really think that it is short-sighted to get rid of that position or reassign it in any way, because I saw the work that was being done by the person in that position, and that person is doing a service to the city. This is something that we cannot ignore. And this is a certainty, a scientific certainty, and it's very short-sighted to get rid of that position. We need to be preparing more, not less. We're woefully unprepared in Oregon.
Thank you, Sheila. If you could sign in, and just so we have your name and address for the record, I had an opportunity to hear your opening comments at that preparedness fair, and you really are an expert in some of those areas, so I appreciate the work that you're doing and communicating some of the risks that are out there. As a city and as a council, we are looking at enhancing our preparedness, and more to come in a very short while as we're putting our budget together on that. So I'll tell you, I'm one that's going to make sure that we're going to have a coverage and working with the county in a meaningful way moving forward.
And if there's anything I can do to help, I don't charge for this, I just do it because I really want people to be prepared. You're only as prepared as the least prepared person in your neighborhood, and we can all work together, and we can prepare for this so we can recover from this.
Absolutely. Thank you for your testimony. Go ahead.
Do you want my address here?
Yeah, just your name and address, so for the record.
Okay.
The position that was eliminated or set aside, I know he was a part-time basis on that.
Right.
What's the background of that? Is that something that's been eliminated completely, that position, or are we going to try and fill it?
So this past year was the first year we had a dedicated part-time position for emergency management. In the past, we've handled emergency management through more of a committee approach. We'll continue to do that in the future. What we're really looking at is a way to make sure we provide a comprehensive service for fire inspection, prevention, and emergency management. And we really need a higher level of certification on our staff than we currently have.
Yeah, and he was providing that opportunity to be certified through the CERT training.
Yes.
And, is that no longer available for the time being?
They'll continue to be CERT training. In fact, the county has indicated a willingness to step up and manage that program for the whole region.
Any other questions? Sheila, thank you.
You're welcome. And if you'll excuse me, I'm playing hooky from a class tonight to come here. So
We understand. We understand.
Okay, thank you.
Did that only
Do we have anyone else that would like to address the council this evening? Well, we'll recognize it, I mean, you could share a moment, and if you'd like, or,
Ma'am, excuse me, you left your purse up front here?
again, state your name
Hello.
and sign in for the
Yes,
record.
my name is Michael Wells. I live at 118 Northeast 9th Street, and I was going to talk to you about the earthquake. I'm not exactly. Oh, she filled out everything. Okay. I'm just a guy. I don't know that much about earthquakes. I don't know. This is why I had to write everything down.
Again, Michael, if you just want to share briefly your concern, we'll hear that, and you've heard that we're going to address it in a different way, in hopefully a more meaningful way for our citizens within the.
Okay, thank you. My concerns were more about after the earthquake. I'm pretty certain that I will survive an earthquake. Yeah, I have a table that I can hide under and some emergency rations. However, a large portion of our economy comes from tourism. We have a downtown that routinely ranks as one of the best downtowns in America, and we're at the heart of wine country. People will travel from all over the Pacific Northwest in order to vacation here. Our historic small town feel and our bevy of wine tasting rooms makes for a wonderful time for anybody looking to get away from it all and enjoy themselves. But imagine you set money aside for a vacation rental, set plans, put down the deposit, drove the whole way, looking forward to a lovely vacation, only to find out there was no Wi-Fi or electricity or even running water. The quaint little downtown that you were so looking forward to visiting is no longer there. Would you still want a vacation there? My guess would be no for a lot of people. As you have already heard from tonight, we are at the precipice of a natural disaster the likes of which Oregon has never seen before. And the thought of our buildings falling, our bridges failing, and our electricity and water disappearing is something the human brain was not meant to process. I have to admit, I can't even fathom the magnitude. When I was in high school, there was an earthquake that seemed like more of a minor inconvenience than anything. I thought that somebody was just annoyingly shaking the table that I was sitting at. Oregon has not faced a natural disaster like California and Japan almost routinely do. And a failing of the human brain, myself included, is that if it hasn't happened to us personally, part of us believes that it doesn't exist. And as absurd as that sounds, there are plenty of people believed in history that a disaster would never happen to them, and they met with a terrifying fate. I may feel that this earthquake will never happen, but I'm also smart enough to know, to listen to people far more knowledgeable than me, such as Sheila. The future of McMinnville depends on how long it takes to recover from this impending disaster. How long will it take for our town to get back to normal? We can survive the earthquake, but that's not everything. How much money is McMinnville going to lose in the period of time after the earthquake? How many vacations will be redirected elsewhere because there's no running water or even electricity? How many residents will just straight up move away because there's no hospital? The ultimate question becomes, will McMinnville ever recover because we weren't prepared? There is hope. Downtown buildings can be reinforced. Our bridges can be updated so they can be used after the event. People can be taught what to do in an emergency. Our sewer and power lines can be reinforced. We can survive the aftermath, but only if we start now. What I would like is to start with reinforcing the bridges so that transportation and relief supplies can come in as soon as possible. And at the same time, make sure our water and sewer lines are protected from rupturing so we can have clean water in the ensuing year and a half that is estimated that it will take to repair. Our healthcare buildings should be prepared, and extra fuel for police, firefighters, and ambulances should be stockpiled locally. This will no doubt cost the city a lot of money, but I am absolutely certain that the cost will be a pittance compared to the expenses we will incur if we do not take these actions in time, money, and our lives. How quickly we bounce back depends on what we do now. Do we want to be known as the last residents of McMinnville, or those who ensured its future prosperity? Thank you.
Any questions for Michael? Thank you. We have two proclamations this evening that we'd like to present. And so, Chief Matt, would you come up with, we've got a few uniformed officers back there. We've got, yeah, we do. And if you'd like to introduce our officers.
Robert Harmon's here, Eric Newhouse and Chris Powell. Captain Simons is in the back, along with Captain Sandoval.
Well, it's with pleasure we have this opportunity to recognize National Police Week. We are so pleased and proud of the work that you do on behalf of the city. So with that, whereas the Congress and the President of the United States has designated May 15th as Peace Officers Memorial Day, and the week in which May 15th falls, a National Police Week, and whereas the members of the Law Enforcement Agency of McMinnville play an essential role in safeguarding the rights and the freedoms of McMinnville, and whereas it is important that all citizens know and understand the duties, responsibilities, hazards, and sacrifices of their law enforcement agency, and that members of our law enforcement agency recognize their duty to serve the people by safeguarding life and property, by protecting them against violence and disorder, and by protecting the innocent against deception and the weak against oppression. And whereas the men and women of Law Enforcement Agency of McMinnville unceasingly provides a vital public service, now, therefore, I, Scott A. Hill, Mayor of McMinnville, Oregon, do hereby proclaim the week of May 15th, through May 21st, 2017 as National Police Week, and call upon all citizens of McMinnville and upon all patriotic, civic, and educational organizations to observe the week of May 15th through to the 21st of 2017 as Police Week, with appropriate ceremonies and observances in which all of our people may join in commemorating how law enforcement officers, past and present, who by faithful and a loyal dedication to their responsibilities have rendered a dedicated service to their communities, and in doing so have established for themselves an available and endurable reputation of preserving the rights and the security of all citizens. I further call upon all citizens of McMinnville to observe the 15th of May 2017 as Peace Officer Memorial Day in honor of those law enforcement officers who, through their courageous deeds, have made the ultimate sacrifice in service to their community, or have become disabled in the performance of duty, and let us recognize and pay respect to the survivors of our fallen heroes. In witness thereof, I have herefore set my hand and caused the official seal of the city of McMinnville to be affixed this, the 9th day of May, 2017. Scott A. Hill, Mayor of the city of McMinnville. Chief?
Thank you.
Any words?
Thank you. I think it's well known that I think our city's probably got one of the best law enforcement officers, groups of individuals that do a very difficult job, and we really appreciate this honor today, and the work that the officers and the detectives and support staff all do is critical to making MAC what it is. So thank you for having us.
And if you just take the message back to your coworkers, I know you're able to be here. You're going to have to leave because we need you out on the streets tonight. But share that within the total group of how resoundingly we just send our message of thanks and support. Thank you. Well, we have another group this evening, the Public Works group, and I would ask that anyone that's associated with Public Works to come up front. Mike said he's not going to come up. He wants all of you, and I see many of you, so come on up. Yeah, David, you've got to come up. We have a proclamation to this fine group, and this is not all of our public works by all means, but the ones that could make it out tonight. And so we have a proclamation of National Public Week's work, which is May 21st through the 27th of 2017. Whereas 2017 marks the 57th annual National Public Works Week, and this year's theme is Public Works Connects Us. And whereas Public Works, as a cornerstone of civilization, plays a vital role in connecting us all together, and whereas Public Works provides, maintains, and improves the structures and services that assure a higher quality of life for our community, and whereas our streets, roads, bridges, and public transportation keeps us linked together, and our clean water and sanitation services keeps us healthy and allows our community to grow and to prosper. Whereas the employees of McMinnville Water and Light and of the city's engineering, building, public works, and wastewater departments works tirelessly every day to strengthen the bond that keeps us all connected. And whereas it is in the public interest of McMinnville citizens, business owners, civic leaders, and youth to gain an understanding of the importance of public works and the public works program in their daily lives. Now, therefore, I, Scott A. Hill, Mayor of the City of McMinnville, Oregon, do hereby proclaim the week of May 21st through the 27th as National Public Works Week in the city of McMinnville, and call upon all the citizens, business leaders, civic organizations to acquaint themselves with the issues involved in providing, maintaining our public works infrastructure, and to recognize the contributions that our public work employees make every day to our health and welfare. In witness thereof, I have hereto set my hand and caused the official seal of the city of McMinnville to be affixed this, the 9th day of May, 2017. Signed, Scott A. Hill, Mayor of the City of McMinnville. Thank you. Now, what we're going to do now is just have each of you introduce yourself and what department, how long you've been with the city.
Sean Garrison, Street Department, Public Works, about 15 years.
Matt Bernards, I've been with the city for 8 years, and I'm in collections wastewater side.
Liz Lazar, and I'm with the Parks Department, and I've been here 9 years.
Mike Runge with the Wastewater Services, 4 years.
Leland Kester, Wastewater Services. I've been here 19 and a half years.
Jason Height, Wastewater Services. Been with the city 3 years.
Jeff Swale, Wastewater Services, and I've been about 6 years.
Tim Monroe, Wastewater Services. I'm in my 29th year.
David Renshaw, Public Works, 11 and a half years.
Dave Gehring, McMinnville Wastewater Services, 26 years.
Thank you, everyone. Mike, I'll give the proclamation to you and would ask just for a couple of words from you, and then also take back to the group. We're going to have an opportunity to have a barbecue on the 18th, and many of the counselors and I will be a part of that. We won't miss that opportunity for a barbecue. So, Mike?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor, and certainly appreciate staff joining us this evening. It's sort of one of the favorite things that we get to do throughout the year is to recognize our staff for the services that they provide, pretty much mostly behind the scenes, quietly. If you need us, it's probably because something isn't working, and so we work hard to make sure that that's not the case. And so I appreciate staff being here this evening. Mayor, you did mention we'll have an employee recognition barbecue. That'll be Wednesday the 24th. At McMinnville Water and Light. Once again, Water and Light will be joining us for that celebration. They'll also be joining us for our Touch a Truck events that'll happen that week. We'll be at 3 elementary schools this year, reaching out to kindergarten classes and sharing with those students a little bit about what Public Works is about and what we do for the community. So thanks again for the recognition, and hope to see you all at the barbecue.
Thank you, Mike, and thank you, Public Works. Councilors, that takes us to our consent agenda this evening, and we have 2 items on the consent agenda. A renewal request from this Center Market 17 for a liquor license at 509 Northeast Baker Street, and a request from Izzy's Restaurants for a liquor license at 1290 North Highway 99. Is there any counselor that would like to have anything taken off, any of the items taken off the consent agenda? Hearing none, then do I have a motion?
I so move.
Second.
It has been moved by Council President Menke and seconded by Councilor Garvin. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed signify by saying nay. The consent agenda has been passed unanimously. This evening, we have new business. We have a request from Jessica Rex on behalf of Memorial Elementary School PTA for a noise variance waiver for an event to be held on May 12th. And so if Ms. Rex is here, if she could come up. Welcome.
Thank you. And this is Sarah Hansen. She is also on the PTA board with me.
Good. If you go ahead and share with the council your requests this evening.
Okay, so we are getting ready to do our annual spring fling. It's one of our larger fundraisers for the year. And this year, we are going to be having some outdoor performances. The Linfield Luau Club is going to be coming. The high school's ballet folklorial will be coming, and then we also have a singer and guitarist that will be coming to perform live music from about 5 to 8. If it rains, then we'll have it inside, but if it doesn't, it will be on the Memorial Elementary School playground.
Any questions for Sarah or Jessica? Do we know what the time of the variance that the hours that you're asking for the variance?
It's going to be from 5 to 7:45.
Okay, from 5 to 7:45?
Mm-hmm.
No other questions? Okay, thank you. We'll take this request up. I asked for a motion to direct the city manager to approve the request for a waiver from the city's noise ordinance from Jessica Rex for May the 12th.
So moved.
Okay, so it has been moved by Councilor Jeffries and seconded by Councilor Rudin. All in favor may signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed by saying nay? This motion has passed unanimously, and so we'll get, I think, more information to them, or are we all squared away?
There will be a letter from the city manager.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you so
guys.
much.
Tonight, we have two presentations to come before the council. First, we've got Jody Christensen from Economic Development Partnership, and I think we do this maybe 3 times a year or at least twice a year. So Jody and Lacey, thank you for coming, and we turn the time over to you.
Thank you. Okay, we're getting instructions here. It's very fancy. Okay. So I wanted to thank you for inviting us to visit with you today. I hope most of you know Lacey. She's our marketing specialist. So everything that you see that has our logo on it, or anything that you read that's about our community, that's the work of Lacey. She also is integral in a full reboot on our website that we'll be launching in about 3 weeks, and so you'll see lots of new content there. All right, so yeah, there we go. So as Mayor Hill mentioned, we come before you. This is an opportunity for us to talk about what we've been working on in our office and what you're going to be expecting from us. You may know that we structure our work around 3 pillars. It's McMinnville Made, McMinnville Sites, and McMinnville Works. And under those pillars, we direct our activities. So we're talking about the people who make things in our community, the sites and properties that are available, and then the people who work here and how we support workforce development.
So we just wanted to talk a little bit about some of the projects and events that you may have seen us kind of put on around town. So first off, we had the Urban Renewal Tour, and that was in March, and that was a 2-part event, and the first part was an organized talk with our planning director, Heather Richards, as well as Walt from the Murac group, and it was an opportunity for a lot of community members, including businesses, investors, architects, constructors, and city organizations to come together to kind of learn more about the Urban Renewal program and the grants that are available, as well as a lot of the opportunities there. We also, the second part was a tour of one of our premier sites, which is the Hubbard Shoe Grease Building, and we were able to tour that with Mike Morris, who was able to tell us kind of the history of the area, as well as we were able to walk along Alpine Avenue, which was really great because it was showing a lot of people kind of the opportunities that were available there. Our 2017 Next series is currently called Next Strategic Solutions for Advanced Manufacturing, and this was really built after listening to a lot of our manufacturers, their needs and their kind of concerns as they were going forward for the future. And so that has 28 registered guests, and that's local manufacturers as well as some from the regions. And we've brought in accredited speakers, Gary Connor from OMEP and Sean Busey from Kinesis Marketing, Inc. in Portland, to kind of speak on that. And then our McMinnville Works internship program, you've seen this. This is where we bring interns into the community. This is our 5th year that we're going into. It's continued to have healthy growth, and our interns are being hired around town. You may recognize a few from this photo, including myself. And finally, our McMinnville Made student tours, and this was a continuation of our McMinnville Made Day that we had in October, and we've already completed 2 tours, and those are with students who have shown a real interest in technology. So that's our ESA students, and as well as some robotics clubs who are from middle schools, and it's really just to show kind of what's in the community, because a lot of people don't know about the manufacturers here.
So a lot of what we do, you can see in our newsletter, on our website, and the postings that Lacey does on social media. But quite a bit of the work that we do, you don't ever get to see. We spend a considerable amount of time going out and visiting with our companies to learn what they do, how they do it, and where their pain points are. Our favorite question to ask our companies, what keeps you up at night? Because in that, we can find out where their problems are and their commonalities, and we can generate programs and resources to help our companies. We also are part of recruitment teams. We're on Team Oregon Advanced Manufacturing, Team Oregon Food Processing, and we're also part of a regional pilot that's directing a considerable amount of investment in lead generation, companies looking to move to Oregon, and we're positioning McMinnville to be a part of those conversations. We continue to work with partners around the region and in the state to make sure that we know what the best resources are. And I often say our responsibility is to understand a lot, a mile wide, but an inch deep, which means that we have to ask 3 or 4 questions to understand what they need, and then we get them to the experts. So that takes time and energy for us to make sure that we're getting useful and valuable resources. You may have seen this, and I hope you're talking a lot about it. We have made an aspirational goal, and we know that many of you are on board with us. We're looking at fostering creation of 1,500 family wage jobs in 15 years. There's a lot of numbers there, but I will say that this is part of our history. We're not afraid to take on big and lofty aspirational goals. It's deeply rooted in the history of McMinnville Industrial Promotions when they made a commitment and investment to bring 9 new industries to McMinnville in their campaign 9 in '69. So we took a page from their book, and we, as a board, discussed what was possible. And in 15 years, our city will celebrate its 150th anniversary. So we believe if we can stand at that moment, at that time, and say that we made a commitment 15 years ago and look at the results, that will be a pretty outstanding moment for all of us. So what does a family wage job mean? We're going to talk a little bit about that. And what are the types of industries that we're going to be focused on, and what kind of innovation are we going to be focused on? We'll talk a little bit about that. But what's really important are some of the other numbers. To achieve 1,500 family wage jobs in 15 years, and we're primarily talking about advanced manufacturing and technology, we have to average 11 jobs per industrial acre. And that's aggressive. And when I've told other economic development people around the state that that's what we're planning to do, they go, that's a big number. But McMinnville usually achieves what they go out for. So we believe it's possible. We've also worked with Heather Richards and making sure that we're gut checking this number. We don't want it to be out of range. So if you look at the forecast for job growth for McMinnville over the next 20 years, it's a 1.7% growth. That would mean that we would be achieving about 1,500 industrial jobs. So it's possible. But it's not any job, it's a family wage job. And so we're going to talk a little bit about that.
So we define advanced manufacturing as a business that utilizes and promotes emerging technologies and implements those innovations into their process. When we say advanced manufacturing, it often requires a higher skill level by the workers, and that often leads to a higher pay grade. What family wage job means is that someone can live comfortably on it, can live a comfortable life, and meet their necessities as well as have some entertainment. So what we also define as advanced manufacturing is a company that brings new money into the city. So this means that they're creating a product or service that is being consumed elsewhere outside of the city, and therefore new money is coming in. Along with this, the definition of advanced manufacturing is changing, and it needs to change. So the traditional definition is a business means that it comes from a single country of origin and that there must be a physical transformation which creates economic benefits. So with the emergence of technology and everything with that, the definition needs to change. So we're including things like software, research, and design as all part of this new manufacturing process, especially jobs where they may not be as hands-on, they may not be producing a physical product, but a company like TTR, who is on the screen right now, they were our manufacturing leaders of the year this year, and they create a software for tax research and law. And so though they're not producing a physical product, it's actually being consumed online. We consider them manufacturers as well. We are also considering traditional manufacturers in our definition of advanced manufacturing. So companies like Cascade Steel, Solid Form Fabrication, and Make It Polymers and Composites, they're using innovation to create more efficiency in their companies as well as streamline processes. So any company that's really embracing technology in an innovative way, we're looking at them to kind of increase their family wage jobs. We're also including biotech companies such as AP Tech and Precision Analytical, as well as companies who are using technology to create new products in interesting ways, such as Northwest UAV, who designs drones, and Northwest Rapid Manufacturing, who uses selective laser sintering to 3D print products. So by doing all this, we're ensuring that we have a variety of industries and businesses in McMinnville to combat the ebb and flow in business. So whenever business rise or falls, we have a variety of businesses to kind of catch McMinnville's economy.
It's all about strengthening our portfolio. And we want to make sure that we have enough diversity in the types of companies and the sectors that we have. So as Lacey said, the ebb and flow, it's a natural part of business. It's a natural part of the economy that you have ups and downs. So you want to strengthen McMinnville's chances to weather the storm differently by diversifying our portfolio. So one way we're going to do that is we're going to be strategically targeted on tech. And we've announced recently that we're going after tech. We're using the companies that we have here in town to help us understand where there might be supply chain opportunities. We're calling it Tech2R, Growing Tech in Oregon Wine Country. We've started building relationships with the Technology Association of Oregon, and they're extremely excited about the opportunity to partner with us on this particular campaign. There's a great amount of synergy with the types of projects and programs that they provide, and we think that we can really leverage what we have here with that organization, so we're very excited about that. This is going to be a 2 to 3 year campaign, so we're calling it a soft launch right now. We're doing a lot of data and research collection. We're learning from our companies what we really need to be, what we need to understand, where the challenges are, and how we're competitively advantaged in McMinnville. And I'll tell you this, what we have when we talk about quality of life plays really well in the world of technology, because they can be anywhere. They can be anywhere in the world to produce their product, because it's often cloud-based or based in technology that's on the web or on the fiber. So what they're looking for is a place that offers them a certain kind of lifestyle, a place to grow their families, a place where they can be connected. They often have a very millennial approach to the world, so they're looking for a place where they can be engaged in community work. They can be involved in government. They can be involved in systematic change. So McMinnville has so much to offer in that industry, in that category, what those companies are looking for, and we've heard that over and over again. TTR could have been anywhere in the world, and they decided to stay here and grow their company. They're growing from 60 to 120 employees. That's a fantastic testament to when they asked their employees, would you leave? 65% said they're staying. That's fantastic. We have a company called Predicta. We've talked about it before. You've seen it in our newsletter. They're based in San Francisco. The most expensive place in the United States to work is San Francisco. It's hard to live on $110,000 in San Francisco. So what did they do? They're moving their client management team here, and they're growing them. 40 people will be managing all of their client and growth for their company out of McMinnville, and the singular reason they can offer a life to their employees that great food, great wine, great schools, great parks, great city. And we're going to play on that. And we're going to ask those companies to help make sure that we get introduced to many more companies, because we know that we have a growth opportunity there. You can tell I'm really excited about that. That is going to be an all hands on deck. So some of the things that we want you to look forward to over the next few months. McMinnville Economic Development Partnership received a grant from the Oregon Talent Council to deliver 4 workshops on how we grew our own community internship program. So we've received a grant to do that. It's helping secure resources for McMinnville, for our office, so that we can do other things, but it's also helping us make stronger connections around the state. We'll be finishing up the next series that Lacey mentioned earlier, and then we'll be launching a second next event in the fall around access to capital. We're in preliminary discussions right now about bringing in a site selector to come into our community in the fall to tour our sites and meet people to find out what it's like to do business here. We have 4 more student tour industry tours on deck, and the mayor will be attending a couple of those. Again, I mentioned that we have a relationship growing with TAO, the Technology Association of Oregon. That's the first of many that you'll be seeing. We want you to hold the date for October 3rd. That's our annual event. We're excited to do that again. We will be launching our 5th year of the intern program. We have 16 interns at 13 companies. We have 5 new companies participating this year, and 2 have never had interns before. So we're very proud of that. Our office is also working on 2 very large grants for our companies. I can't talk too much about that. I'm hoping we can make an announcement in the next couple of months. But that's to help shore up and help them achieve growth at a faster pace if we can get those grants to them. So things to keep in mind. You often ask how you can help. I do have a call to action for you. We're going to need you to help us reach that 1,500 in 15 years. And you are singularly responsible for the things that are going to make an impact on that 11 jobs per acre. So that's going to be about permitting and zoning and ordinances. And we ask that you keep a mindful eye, as you always do, when you make decisions about development, particularly on industrial property and land use, that you think and believe that we can achieve that 1,500, and that you watch those particular aspects of your duties and make sure that we're not stopping that process, that we're continuing to move that forward. So at this time, I'd like to ask if there are any questions.
Thank you. To my right, any questions for Lacey or for Jody? To my left? Thank you for the report. You know, I feel like I'm connected at the hip with this group. I mean, I get so excited when I'm out, and Jeff and I have had an opportunity to go out and talk to a number of the large corporate entities in our community. We know the heritage and that legacy that we have here, and to continue, it's going to take work, and it's going to take vision, and it's going to take a partnership. And that's who and what you're all made out of, is a partnership. And so I'm very thankful to be a part of that, whether it be a 4-legged stool or a 3-legged stool, whatever it is.
Stable
We
table
feel
with a
like we
couple
are really
leaves.
here, and just say thank you, keep up the good work, continue to communicate with us, and we'll work together to accomplish 1,500 in 15 years.
There you go.
Thank you.
That's the hashtag. Thank you.
Thanks, Jody. We have another presentation this evening on the McMinnville Air Show proposal. And so, Bill Brack, if you're here, if you'd come up and address the council. Bill, it's good to see you again. I know you had the opportunity last Tuesday night, if I'm not mistaken, to meet with our airport commission. And so you have a presentation for us, and I think that will be brought up. And so go ahead.
All right. Well, I appreciate your time and enjoy being here. I trust that you've seen our proposal, and primarily I'm here to answer questions. But briefly, I appreciate having Jody go before me. As you heard her mention, this community has a lot to offer, and an air show is a great way to demonstrate what your community has. The city of Hillsborough, about 3 years ago, conducted a survey to ask many people why they came to the city of Hillsborough. The number one reason in that survey was the air show. And because of that reason, we have always had a great relationship with the city, but we continue to have a great relationship because it is a driver for the community there to demonstrate similar qualities of what that community has to offer folks and why they might want to come to their community. As for the event and as for our organization, we're a 501c3 nonprofit Oregon-based charity that raises our funds through an aviation event called an air show. And ultimately, we exist to raise money for Oregon charities. And we have a committee that works with us that selects our grant recipients, our scholarship recipients, and those recipients are not just restricted to Hillsborough or Washington County. They're represented all over this region and into Southwest Washington as well. And if we are lucky enough to come to McMinnville and have an air show here, we look forward to working with community partners and community charities to continue our efforts very, very aggressively here for your community. And the event, our planning schedule would be to conduct an air show in 2018 if we're approved, and to what we would call a somewhat of a limited air show, just to be able to work with your community and your EMS and law enforcement departments to validate what we think is the right number of folks that could descend upon the airport and keep everybody safe, and begin the work also to plan for 2019 and beyond, where we would start to court our U.S. and Canadian jet demonstration teams, which would also bring additional folks if the facility would accommodate. The history of our organization, we've been around for, this is our 30th event. Over the 30 years, 15 of those years we were part of the Rose Festival. For those of you that had been to the event, you may remember that it was called the Rose Festival Air Show. And when the Chamber of Commerce and the Rose Festival Committee opted to part ways, the Oregon International Organization was formed, largely with the same folks that had been running the air show locally, but and that entity continues today. We've put back a little over $2 million since 2003, when Oregon International was formed, into area charities, and that work continues as well. A few questions that have come up that were very appropriate questions through this process is would this be a Hillsborough 2.0? And it's definitely not our intention. We would want to work with and look forward to work with the community here to brand and build an image around the event that reflects this community, what it has to offer the folks that would come into the community to the event, and capitalize on those strengths as well. I think I could go on forever, but any questions for me?
So let's go ahead and open it up for any questions for Bill. I know we have quite a few, so.
Well, I went to your air show last year as a guest of you folks, and it was a wonderful event. I really enjoyed myself. And as I listened to you speak, it was very clear that emergency services were probably the biggest thing that the city would provide. Obviously, you know, we're a town of 33,000, and we don't have the resources anything close to what Hillsborough and some of the larger communities around which they draw from. I'm very interested in understanding how you would propose to assist us in this matter, because obviously we're going to need some assistance. We're obviously, as a city, looking at it very carefully, but just curious to know if you might have some suggestions that you might be able to augment this.
Well, I think it's a great question. First off is scalability. The event that you went to, we host 30,000 people, a little in excess of 30,000 people a day. We're looking at half of that, or a little under half of that, to keep the scale appropriate. The other piece, we have made the introduction of various entities to do some research, city manager to city manager, for example, police department to police department, and so forth. We anticipate hosting some of your leaders at our event this year to just see what and how they approach the air show, and so that it could be scaled accordingly here. That part, I'm not a law enforcement officer, so I can't give them their guidance, but other than open what our law enforcement folks do there, and they certainly partner with numerous agencies. Some of the agencies do come from outside of the city. Some of our federal folks obviously come from outside of the area to assist, and our folks at the City of Hillsborough Police Department can address that directly with your police folks. From a crash fire rescue perspective, likewise, we partner with a couple resources, one of which is the Oregon Air National Guard, and they bring a resource from PDX, for example, because they typically have numerous assets on the field. They represent that military support piece for us. So there would be connections like that we would anticipate that we would do here as well, in accordance with your chief of each department, of course.
Okay, well, thank you. I appreciate that information.
Okay.
There's also a couple other things that cross my mind, availability of lodging and parking. That was huge, as I recall. I mean, you've been through the town. Do you feel like somehow the resources could be made available that will make all this work?
Well, I think to best answer that question, the first air show, our intention is to keep it as humble as possible, so that we can validate our assumptions. We know that an average car holds 3.4, 3.5 people that come to an air show, so we know that we're going to need several thousand parking stalls. We have hotels. I'm confident we will fill them all for the weekend. And a big hunk of those will be filled by us for our performers and our guests that we bring in to work the event. And then the rest, obviously, for those that come in and attend. We've looked at RV parks that you have in the area to maximize that as well. So we still have some questions like that to answer, but that's definitely part of our economic impact that we hope to make, is to fill up all those rooms and restaurants and so forth.
What kind of draw do you anticipate in the first year in 2018?
I know we've talked just anecdotally. When we get down to actually doing the numbers with your staff and confirming exactly how many square feet do I have to park, if we can get to 15,000 for each day, that's our initial goal and target. And I would love to see us, if that's the number, then I'd love to see us bring that many folks in. We will be targeting a segment that have RV groups that come in and like to come in and explore wineries and things of that nature. That's a smaller total number, but it's still an element that we look forward to bringing in as well. And then once we've gone through one year, if we handled that well, we didn't have any significant breaking points, then we would look to see what is the next level. Can we go to 20,000 a day, or maybe not? We won't know that until we've done the formal review and then obviously had the first show.
Well, thank you very much. At least you've answered most of the questions I had.
Well, I appreciate your questions.
Thank you again for the wonderful time I had last year. I'm sure the city officials will enjoy it this coming year.
Good.
Any further questions from the council?
Yeah, I have.
Wendy?
Thank you for coming and giving us a presentation. We're obviously really looking at the opportunity, and we just want to make sure that we can handle it. One of the questions I had was, I know you already mentioned lodging, but can you tell us a little bit about what you found the other benefits to the community are in Hillsborough, and how you try to enhance? In your executive summary, you talked about how you would, my computer turned off just when I needed it, how you would utilize it to encourage people to explore the wine country and other things like that. How do you get, how many of the people who would be coming to this would also then explore out into the community, and how do you encourage that?
I think some of that will be with our partnership with that sector of the area. So we don't necessarily have a wine country in Hillsborough where you all do here. In fact, our wine partner for our event comes from your community. And for us to be able to have fun with that, one of these shows that we've looked at to mimic, if you will, is one in a wine country a little further south from here in Santa Rosa, California. They have had a wonderful event, Wings and Wine, and they call it the Wings Over Wine Country. Wonderful partnership that they do, and each year they rotate some of the wineries that they partner with. How we do it here is yet to be determined, whether it's a conglomeration and we have a host of the wineries represented on the field and the guests get to learn about all of them, or whether we have an opportunity to move people throughout the wineries. All of those are on our whiteboard right now. Until we put things in the right order, get through this meeting and the next couple steps, formal steps that says, yes, we're going to have an event, then we'll have those discussions to see what is the best fit and how can we do it responsibly. Obviously, wine and piloting an airplane don't go so well together, so we want to make sure that if they fly in here and they go to a winery, they're not getting back in a cockpit and going elsewhere. So we have a lot of logistic questions like that to answer, but we hope to be able to move folks from the airfield also out to wineries that want to participate with us.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Alan? Bill, thank you for your presentation and also your a little bit more expanded presentation at the Airport Commission.
Oh.
Appreciate that. We gathered a lot of facts there. One of the discussions we had about the July 1st deadline day of having a signed and deal with the city. What are your thoughts on that? Is that workable, and can it be expanded out a little bit?
So what that deadline is, the U.S. jet teams are on a 2-year rolling calendar now. And so for us to submit our paperwork to the Pentagon, it is due July 1st. And that July 1st deadline is for the 2019 air show cycle. 2018 has already been defined for the jet teams, and it's not our goal to have them in 18 anyway. We will be seeking the single ship demonstrations, which those are due this July. So that's the importance of that deadline. And it's a simple form. It's a matter of the owner of the facility, the city manager, signs acknowledging that, yes, they know that we're proposing an aviation event. The FAA signs off on it, I sign off on it, and it's sent over to the Pentagon.
Just one more. That's a drop dead date, if you want to call it that, to get the blue.
For that paperwork, yes, sir.
For 2019.
Yes.
And so is there a deadline for what would happen in the first year of this air show in 2018?
So 2018 has the same deadline for the single ship paperwork. So the single ship, like an A-10 demo, the F-18 from the Navy demo, the F-35, the F-22, all of those military demos that are just one aircraft. With the exception of the Marine Corps, they bring 3 Ospreys if you're selected. Those dates for 2018, same date, July 1.
Yeah, I know in the Airport Commission, which I sit on, we were very excited about the presentation. And then we started getting a lot of questions. How do we get all this done by July 1st? And how do we make it equitable for both parties? If it's beneficial for McMinnville, beneficial for you and the charities, how do we put it together in such a short timeline when there's a lot of issues to be discussed? So that's a concern.
It definitely is for us. if it doesn't occur by the deadline, then it definitely puts the can down the road a bit. It doesn't mean that we're disinterested. It just means we want to continue to proceed. So while we work through those details, the technical part of a contract, absent significant barriers, the paperwork can be submitted prior to a contract. It just, my preference is it's putting the cart a little before the horse. And if it all can get everything done by in June timeframe, that gives us plenty of time to process the 2535. That part is fairly simple. It's just a matter of signatures, running around, getting them, and then faxing it to the Pentagon.
Yeah, I know one of the, and Kelly Menke brought it up, is some of our concerns about support services that we're required to assist with the air show puts a strain and a stress on our community, and so that gives us pause, and that's a main sticking point at this point of finding the funding, but also the manpower to put it up. Do you have any suggestions on that?
Well, I think I don't know your manpower and what your staffing models look like, so I can't speak to that. But I do know that as an airshow performer, I go to communities substantially smaller than this, and they're all scalable. So 2 weeks ago, I was in Vidalia, Georgia, population like I think 12,000 people, and their posture was accordingly. Now they still had the minimum crash fire rescue. That part is not waivable. There are some private contractors for assisting the fire department at aviation events. We certainly can look at having them as our what we call a quick attack team. They're there to, if there were ever an issue, they go in and are there to take care of the initial issue, whatever the issue is, while the fire department comes in and assists them. Law enforcement, again, from that aspect, I don't know your staffing, so that would have to come from your city folks to tell us whether you can handle that or not, and what would be necessary to bring from outside resources. I know in Hillsborough, it's not just a City of Hillsborough Police Department that we work with. We work with County Reserve, Tualatin Reserve, and Tualatin Fire Department. Multiple agencies come in and assist with the event. And they are part of our grant program that helps fund some of that activity as well. Maybe that helps answer some of that.
Could you speak to the volunteer coordination that you also provide?
So yeah, we have a staff member on my small staff that's what one of her functions is, volunteer coordination. At the event in Hillsborough, we have about 1,000 people that she oversees to pull the event off. I don't anticipate nearly that number here initially. It'll be much smaller. We do several activities there that have evolved over 30 years. I don't anticipate seeing that footprint here for several years. But that's one of her roles, is to coordinate the volunteer effort that is necessary to pull the event off, make it successful.
David?
I just want to make sure I understood correctly that you would need a binding commitment from the city by July 1st that we would be able to provide at no cost to the air show, the fire, EMS, law enforcement services, along with the other items on your proposal?
Actually, prior to that, if we wanted to meet the July 1 date, I would need a few days at minimum, if that meant I'm running around getting the signatures of the 2535. That would be
So in 45 days, you would need a binding commitment from the city that it would be committing these resources to this event in 2018?
Yes, sir.
Matt, can you comment on that?
Yes. I appreciate Bill's presentation, and I know when we met maybe 9 months ago now, I know there were some concerns. I know there continues to be concerns. I spoke with the fire chief last week, and I don't want to steal any of your thunder here, but we, as public safety leaders in the city, do have some concerns, some very significant concerns, whether or not we can pull this off in, one, a short period of time, and two, our locale is much different than that of Hillsborough, Beaverton, which we're kind of on an island down here. We would, I would say, are the big brother down here, and we've got a staff of, well, right now we've got about 35 people. That would include myself. And, you know, when we're dealing with Hillsborough, Beaverton, you're dealing with, you know, agencies, 100 plus sworn per agency, and plus those agencies with the sheriff's office up there is a large sheriff's office. So again, I don't want to speak. Actually, I will speak for Rich because he did ask for me if I was given the opportunity to speak. We do have some significant concerns right now with being able to pull this off safely, and that we have the commitments in place, and a 45-day window is extremely short and small. So I would be remiss if I did not say that law enforcement, fire do have some really significant concerns with pulling this off right now.
Thank you. And this is the first that I understood that there had to be a binding commitment in place by that date. So that's why I wanted to get clarification on that. And I appreciate the position you're in. If you're dropping paperwork on the Pentagon, you want to be darn certain you're going to be able to follow through on the commitment.
Yeah, I think that the main reason, there are shows that have put that paperwork in without a commitment, and then when the commitment doesn't come through, the political capital that was spent was wasted. And we don't want to do that for the community here, nor for our entity either. And I think most of you know, or if you don't know, this process did begin quite some time ago, and we had a little bit of a time setback with some changes with the city that caused us to start over again with city manager position changing. We understand that normal timelines, it takes a little bit of time for a city to go through and review such a proposal. It's our interest to continue, whether we get it pulled off by this July 1 or the next July 1, then all that means is we push it down the road. And we're still very interested, and we'd like to continue the discussion and move things forward as quickly as we can, and answer the questions and get everything resolved so that both law enforcement and your fire professionals are comfortable proceeding.
Mr. Mayor?
Go ahead.
I appreciate your willingness to be flexible on this, because right now I'm looking more like 2019 than 18. There's just too many risks involved to make a binding agreement for 2018. I think we need, as a council and as a community, at least another year to plan how we can do this right. My biggest fear is that we really try hard to make this work, and it's kind of a dump. It doesn't quite work well, and we have a lot of problems. No one's want to come back, and it could make a really bad scar on McMinnville. So I just would rather be a little bit more conservative in our timetable for that.
That said, we're very enthusiastic about the long-range effects of the show. It's just a real concern that we do it right the first time.
We certainly can appreciate that, and our intention would be to have a safe event whenever that first event is. And if it's a push out to get everything taken care of with the various departments, we're okay with that. We've been around 30 years. We intend to be around for hopefully a lot more, and we'd much rather do it right than do it quick. The only, if there weren't barriers for this year, the deadline's July 1. But the same deadline will be there next year and the year after and the year after, so.
And is that deadline just for those jet teams? That's not for to have the
Correct.
show in general?
That is for, yes, the U.S. jet teams and the single ship jet teams. The single ships are on a 1-year rotating calendar, and the jet teams are on a 2-year calendar. So that's just the importance of that.
As far as our site goes, I know I've been up to your Hillsborough show 4 times in the last 10 years, and you guys do close some roads off. Brookwood and I believe Evergreen get closed off for approach and whatnot. What's your anticipation as far as Highway 26 is a lot farther away than Highway 18 is from our site? So are you trying to get with ODOT to divert traffic, or is there not going to be any flights over that? Or
Well, you can fly over certain highways. We close Evergreen when we have the U.S. jet teams. Their box does extend over that, so we do close that for about an hour and a half. And then Brookwood, we close for the bulk of the air show. And we work with the city on both of those to close those. If anything were to, I don't believe our planning is to encroach upon 18. That's the highway in between the airport and the museum? No.
Yeah.
No.
But like Airport Road, Crookshank Road.
Correct.
Amity-Dayton Highway for that
There will be some
secondary runway?
during the actual box activity. There will be some roads like that would be impacted that we would work with the city on to close. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Those are all county, correct?
They would be, yes.
The county. Okay.
So if I may just summarize what I'm hearing, again, Bill, thank you for making the presentation. I hear a strong desire on your part to work with us, whatever that may look like, to bring a quality event to our community. I think you've heard from the council a real a desire to see this possibly work. There's pros and cons, and I think I heard that there could even be some grant program to help accomplish some of the things that may need to be done. But it would have to be a working hand relationship with us both coming to agree that those are the things that need to happen. One question that I would have, and I don't know that you would have the answer to that, but something that I would like to look into is to contact Hillsborough and see what the cost to the city is and weigh out the benefit, because we're very pro marketing our community. We're doing some really good things with the wine industry and some of the uniqueness of our downtown, and this could be another event that would just bring people to recognize the beauty of McMinnville, along with the event center across the street and the Air Museum. There's a lot of positives from my perspective, but again, it's got to be done right. And so from my perspective, and I'll just throw this out, I'm hearing a desire to move forward cautiously and having the kind of dialogue that we've not been able to have for the last 8 months with the things that have been changing in the city. Am I hearing what you're saying?
I would agree.
Yeah, I'd definitely like to move forward.
Okay, Alan?
I'd like to see us move forward. I'm like Jody. I'd like to see economic development, whether it's short-term or long-term. We like that coming into the city. But the scope of this is so much more broad than what we've had in the past. I go back 40 years. I can't remember anything close to this. Maybe some of you have been here longer to have seen something this scope that would require the resources of the city to be focused in on a project like this. It's kind of an unknown, too. We don't know the ramifications, but it sure sounds exciting. It'd be neat to research it a little bit more.
Well, along with that, Alan, understanding that we have the ability to build it right if we are cautious in doing it the right way. And Bill, I'm guessing that's what you would like to see, build this event right for our community and for you. And that's where that communication and the dialogue and I think, to staff, what I'm hearing is a desire to move forward and to explore, but not looking at 2018 right now. Definitely, we will not be in a position to have a binding contract by the late part of June. I don't think I hear that from anyone.
When is the show this year? It's not even before July, right?
Which show? Or Hillsborough?
Hillsborough one, is it? Like
It's in
late June?
September.
Oh, September?
Yes, September 22nd.
Yeah, so I would agree with that, that there's no way that our staff are going to have the opportunity to work with Hillsborough staff to get a real cohesive feel of what their obligations are going to be.
Well, that would be, keep in mind, that's 10 months in advance of the proposed show here. So it's, if we push to 19, you'd have 2 air shows to attend prior to a 19 air show here.
Go ahead, David.
But I think the concern is that we haven't had our law enforcement, fire, and EMS personnel out there on the grounds for the Hillsborough Air Show or any other air show other than maybe as spectators themselves. And if we're going to sit down and have a productive conversation with you, mapping out a resource commitment from the city and understanding what we need to be able to provide and bring to the table and what the limitations are going to be on that, we need that opportunity to have the staff be there probably for the one event to be able to start a productive conversation, and then for a second event to help fine tune the processes going into your next show.
Certainly, I think that's, hearing the concerns, I think that's a great next step for any of you that have not attended or would like to attend again so you can see what it is that we do. Certainly the law enforcement and fire chief as well, or any of the other staff, so that they can interface with and participate in our incident action planning meeting, our morning briefs each morning, understand the value of the air show, what it brings to the departments from a training perspective. It's a great community resource that also can be captured for the departments, and they need to evaluate that for themselves, obviously. And I think attending and meeting their colleagues, whom they probably already know, but seeing them in that capacity and what they do and at what levels and why they're at certain levels would be valuable, I think.
Great. Any further questions for Bill? If not, Bill, thank you for your presentation, but more importantly, for listening to our concerns. It just shows me that I can see a partnership being built, and if we do this right.
Well, it's the only way we're interested. So it's we want to be a partner to the community if this does work. So we appreciate your time, and I know I took a lot of time on the agenda. So thank you.
It's an important discussion. So thank you.
Thank you.
Well, with that, it moves us to our resolutions this evening. And so our first resolution that's on the table is Resolution 2017-32, a resolution initiating the processing and setting a date and time for a public hearing to vacate a portion of Northeast Macy Street, RV 1-17. And so I'll call on Mike to kind of set our discussion, if you would.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. I'll refer you to the staff memo that's in your packet that outline the request that's before you this evening. The city has received a letter from the Yamhill County Gospel Rescue Mission, as well as H&R Birch Limited Partnership, the 2 adjacent property owners related to the vacation request. They have asked that the city council initiate a vacation process to release that area that's no longer needed for city purposes. So there's a map on the screen for you that orients you to the request. It's a portion of Macy Street south of 14th that's adjacent to the Yamhill County Gospel Rescue Mission's property. The property to the east is the property owned by H&R Birch Limited. In the late 90s, when the city improved Lafayette Avenue, we created a connection from 13th Way over to 14th so that that area accesses the traffic signal at Lafayette and Riverside. At that time, the street connection between 14th and Macy was closed. There are site distance issues with that connection, and so you're no longer able to either enter onto Macy or off of Macy onto 14th at that intersection. It's actually a curb and a sidewalk across that frontage. There are utilities within the public right-of-way, but since that time, the area has been accessed off of 13th. And so, as I understand it, if the vacation were to proceed, the area would be returned to the adjacent property owners, and the Birch Partnership has indicated that they would donate their portion to the mission. That would allow the mission to create additional parking that is currently not available to the site, which would allow them to further proceed with the expansion plans that they have for the site. As outlined in the memo, there are two processes that can be used for a vacation. One is a petition process initiated by property owners that requires signatures from an extensive area within 400 feet of the vacated area. The second process is a city-initiated process where the city can determine that they want to initiate the vacation process and move forward with the required hearing. Historically, the city has preferred not to initiate vacation processes if one or more of the adjacent property owners objects to the proceedings. In this particular case, both adjacent property owners have requested that the process move forward. So once the process is initiated, the actual formal process is identical. If the council adopts the resolution this evening, it'll set a public hearing date and time. We'll provide notice to all of those area residents that would be part of the signature process so that they receive notice that the action is being considered by the council. We'll also notify all public utilities that might have an interest in that space and allow for them to provide comment, and then post notice both at the site and publish notice in the newspaper. So with that, staff's recommendation and that of the Affordable Housing Task Force is that the council initiate this vacation process and allow the hearing to take place, after which you can determine whether or not you want to formally vacate the area. So I do know that there are representatives here this evening from the mission if you have questions, and I'm certainly available to answer any questions you might have on the process.
Thank you, Mike. I recognize Kay and David, they're here, and so from the Gospel Rescue Mission. And so let's open it up for discussion. Any discussion at the council level this evening on this resolution?
I've got one, Mayor.
Go ahead, Alan.
I know we're trying to set a date for a public hearing, so this will probably come out, but I wasn't able to visually see 13th and Macy up there. I went down 14th. Who are the property owners at the corners of Macy and 13th? Do we know? In other words, the yellow part is what's the vacation, right?
Correct.
So,
The lot that's on the west side of Macy is privately held.
okay,
The property on the east side is all part of the Birch Limited
it's
Partnership.
part of Birch there. And is that street fully improved at that point?
It is not.
It is not as,
It's gravel and
okay.
some paving, sort of.
Further discussions? If we have no further discussions, I'll ask for a motion to approve Resolution 2017-32, initiating the proceedings and setting a date and time for a public hearing to vacate a portion of Northeast Macy Street, RV 117.
Second.
Okay, it has been moved by Council President Mackey and seconded by Councilor Stassens. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed by saying nay. This resolution has passed unanimously. Thank you. Our second resolution this evening is 2017-33, a resolution approving a waiver of deed restriction. And so, David, I'll call on you to give us some background.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This matter comes before you tonight at the request of Lend-Lease Parallel Infrastructure by official letter that we received on April 17th of this year. Following a series of conversations, they're requesting that the city grant a deed waiver or a waiver of a deed restriction on property located at 3950 Southeast 3 Mile Lane. That property is part of a series of properties that together were sold by the city to Evergreen Helicopters Incorporated in 1971. for the sum total of $25,000 and a commitment from Evergreen that they construct $200,000 worth of buildings and improvements on the site. The city, at the time that they granted the deed and sold the property to Evergreen, held back 5 deed restrictions, which included one, that the owner of the property confine their business operations to the storing, servicing, operating, and repairing of helicopters. Second, that no structures be put onto the site greater than 100 feet in height above ground level. Third, that there be no interference or activities on the property that would interfere with radio and radar facilities at the adjacent airport. Fourth, that the city retained a right of first refusal should the property be sold in the future. And 5, that the city reserved a right of flight, passage, and noise in the airspace above the property. The requester tonight, Lend-Lease and Parallel Infrastructure, have negotiated a lease with the owner of the property, the current owner of the property, to construct a telecommunications tower on the property. The proposed height for that telecommunications tower, I think that the tower structure itself is maybe 130 feet, but all the apparatus high on top of it would extend to 135 feet, which exceeds the height restriction in the deed. Therefore, they've come and requested that the council take action tonight or consider a request from them to execute a waiver of deed restriction to relieve them from the 100-foot height limit. I believe that there may be individuals here this evening from those entities, very good, which I asked to come and present the request to the council, since staff is making no recommendation one way or the other on this request.
Okay. And so if we could have you come forward and indicate your name and address, and we'll take some information from you and have an opportunity to have a good discussion.
So my name is Brandon Olson, not from McMinnville, from Malala.
Okay.
But I represent Parallel Lend-Lease. For this discussion, you can just call us Parallel. It's much simpler. We're a tower developer with an anchor tenant. That's how we selected this location. So Verizon Wireless is our anchor tenant. And they give us a location where they say we have a coverage loss in the area or need expanded coverage because of capacity. This particular one happens to be the Evergreen Museum. A lot of people visit it, so their signals go down in that area. They can't handle the coverage, so they need to expand their coverage and capacity. So we found the facility, cited it, permitted it, zoned it, checked it with the FAA and ODA to make sure we were in compliance, and then found out we were and could get everything approved, and now we're addressing the deed restriction.
Okay.
If we couldn't get it approved, there's no need to be here. The reason for 130 in particular is we're trying to make sure that there's only one structure. So when we develop a tower, we look at it from the standpoint of it has to be able to handle multiple tenants. 100 feet was about Verizon's minimum, and most carriers are about the same for that area because of topography and what they want to see over buildings and into buildings. They want to be able to hand off down towards downtown here and the hospital. There's some existing infrastructure there. And then to the north, that residential neighborhood. So if I want to provide for multiple tenants without putting in a second tower, then we need the extra height. Actually, since this proposal went in, we have an application for a second tenant already in T-Mobile. So we're already looking at 2 tenants being on the tower. We also look for least intrusive method whenever we do these. So it was selected because the zone was industrial, trying to keep it away from residential, even out of commercial if we can. We try with least intrusive to make sure the structure is as clean as possible. If we needed to do a tree or something like that, we would obviously look at those things. But unfortunately, ODA recommended this thing be lit and marked, which means it's striped for aviation reasons because it's near the airport. So I can't really do that with a stealth structure. It can't have a nice glowing tree. So that was the process we walked through to get here today. And then we're just looking to you guys to see if you would waive that deed restriction so we can build the full height.
Thank you. Let's open it up for discussion and questions. Alan?
Yeah, I'll go ahead. Thank you. we've been looking at this and trying to get a scope of how high this would go.
Mhm.
And this would be a completely new structure, correct?
Correct. Brand new. So this particular picture here is the entrance to the Evergreen. On the little map, I had to reference it. So this is the driveway you would go into the museum. So it's looking across the highway, basically, that's southeast. That's the 130-foot height represented to scale that our architects drew up for us, best representing the color the tower is going to be with a single tenant. That was our anchor tenant on top.
And you're talking about multiple tenants on this.
Mhm.
I guess we refer to it as a cell tower, but it has more purposes, is that right?
Its general purpose is cell tower. It could be used for other things, yes.
Yeah, I know we've been talking about emergency preparedness,
Mhm.
and I think it would go a long way in our discussions if we could see some kind of value to the community as far as emergency preparedness and communications in case of emergencies. Have you researched that at all on what capacity there is for emergency purposes?
Yeah, we're happy to always provide our structure. So we just own the physical structure. We do a lot of work up north for Skagit 911, providing them discounted rates to make sure they can provide 911 coverage. We're happy to look at any of that kind of stuff for the city. We're also doing one for Yamhill County right now, and they reserve rights on the tower that we're putting on their property so that they can put their sheriff's equipment on it. Happy to look into that at any point. I can put anybody in touch with our business development group. I'm the builder side, but we're always looking to do that. The tower itself is designed with a lot of capacity in it for the whatever scenarios come up. We also get Wi-Fi companies and stuff like that that look at us. Verizon, T-Mobile's, all those carriers are committed to, 911 service. There's statistics on how many phone calls are generated 911 more than landline these days. So that's one of the, things they always claim is we help provide emergency services by giving capacity and coverage.
Okay, thank you. Kevin?
Could you explain why this location? Do we have someone who's willing to host it? Because I would think moving it across the street would be a little bit more convenient and easier to hide. Like if it was behind
Across
the
the
Oak
street
Grove,
to the north?
Yeah, to the north.
Well, you have a nice, beautiful aviation museum, and that entity isn't the easiest to work with. This was quicker and easier. It was also in a better zone for us being industrial from a planning standpoint. That seems to be least intrusive. We were further to the west originally, but there were some difficulties in Verizon needs to hand off, so make connections between one cell tower to the next so there's not a drop call in between. So this was their ultimate objective. It also is working perfectly for T-Mobile. So that's the criteria we look at is, we don't want multiple towers again. So if we can provide that center location that allows them to infill into the neighborhood to the north, the museum, and then hand off to the other cell sites. So the selection was made based on RF engineering data that they gave us. And it's a combination of placement, lats and longs, and additional height. So how far they have to see and what they can do.
I'm generally supportive of it. I mean, it's unfortunate the color, but.
I agree. I don't want to have to maintain that.
But
paint.
it's an industrial area and it's airports. I mean, they flash lights all. I mean, I don't know.
Adam?
So you talk about handing off and carriers. Is this tower and the heights for this tower just been engineered for Verizon's capability, or have you looked at other carriers networks like AT&T? You mentioned T-Mobile, but you say you're building it to that height, so you only have to build one structure, but have you done the due diligence to know that you're only going to have to build one structure?
Yeah, the way it starts off is we get it initiated from a single carrier usually. The marketing team initially shops it right to the other carriers. We don't make money unless we have the means to prove that there can be multiple tenants. So from my standpoint, I'm the engineering backbone. It can handle 4 tenants, very large tenants. So Verizon usually has the biggest equipment load. It could handle 4 Verizon level. That's usually Verizon and AT&T. Sprint and T-Mobile have a reduced load that gives us some capacity, and then we always build in additional criteria for 911, microwave, point-to-point stuff, business provider, stuff like that. So the structure can handle that, as well as from an RF engineering standpoint, there's propagation maps that we get from all the carriers. They all show this area as a whole, and it's all centralized here. So that was selected with that in mind as well, that the coverage should work. And like I said at the beginning, T-Mobile has already put in an application as second tenant on the tower, showing that it would work.
Thank you.
Any other discussion or questions? Yes, go ahead, David. Why don't you go so we can pick it up, so.
Yeah, you can be on TV for a while.
I'm glad this is being addressed. Dave Adams, KLYC Radio. We embark on something called street level radio, where we do a lot of broadcasting. That's a big hole over there. And when you look at tourism, whenever we are covering an event at Evergreen, or trying to do some live reports from out there, we use the Verizon network a lot. And that is a huge hole for us. If we're at Evergreen covering an event, we have major issues especially when Evergreen starts to fill up with cell phone users. We can't get reports out of there. It makes it difficult to cover issues over there, either from a news standpoint, a breaking news story, or just community events. As they're looking at developing Evergreen to be a tourist destination, especially with the Falls Event Center, that area needs to have better cell service. The wine sip event, the Sip Classic, was a huge problem for us to get reports out of there. There just wasn't the coverage. And when people started to come and turn on their phones, it just disappeared. We need that hole filled. So.
Thus, Dave, if you're having problems, then the individual users are having problems using their equipment?
Yeah. So we need it, they need it, and I'd strongly encourage considering this proposal.
Okay. Thank you, Dave. I'm going to step out and ask Jody, would you come forward and just talk from an airport commission standpoint? Again, I know this has not been brought up before the commission, but you've been on the commission and you're the chair. Any concerns you would see from that perspective? And again, I'm putting another hat on, and you've not had a chance to talk to the commission. We've got Councillor Rudin, who's on the commission, but between the two of you, any concern that you would see from a airport perspective?
I'm looking to the technical support over here. This is the first that I've heard of it. I was not aware that this was happening. So if there's no concern from staff regarding the tower going up, it looks like we have a clear definition from the Department of Aviation. I would trust their recommendation. I think that it goes through a very lengthy process, and I would imagine that every aspect of this particular development is looked at. But I don't have experience with this particular topic.
I just wanted to get a sense, if you had a sense from the makeup of your commission, that they would.
I think our concern would it have any impact on the ability for aircraft to land or take off at the airport? And obviously, going through the Department of Aviation, that would have been vetted, and so that would have stopped the process. There's a protection for that area.
FAA as well, so they've passed both those musters. It's not on airport property.
Right.
It wasn't a matter that was brought before the airport commission, since they don't have standing on the matter. So.
I understand, but I just wanted to get a sense in that she was sitting back there and just wanted to put another hat on.
Keeping my attention. Well, I appreciate that, because we want to protect the activity at the airport, and I believe that, having gone through this process, that has been done. That would be my understanding. So,
thank you, Jody. Any other discussion?
I just have one more quick question.
Go ahead, Wendy.
Obviously, seismic is on our mind tonight. What, with regards to the construction engineering of these towers, what special precautions are taken to make sure that in the event of a major seismic event, that the tower would stay up and continue to function as it should?
Without going into too much
Yeah.
detail, because I have this background as the developer, the initial step is a geotechnical report. Drill down, know the soils. That report's given to an engineer that specializes in tower manufacturing. So they're required to follow state code, local jurisdiction, and federal G code, which has really been expanded to take into topographical, seismic, and then the constraints of the area. So if you're in a high urban area. So those levels are all put on there, stamped by an engineer, submitted through the building department, and vetted. It's an overburdened code, just in layman's terms, to really plan for whatever. So if there was an earthquake with liquefiable soils, it's supposed to account for that to keep that thing from toppling over. Another siting requirement we're doing just because of that is put it in an industrial zone where it limits the impacts in that worst case scenario that you can't plan for.
Thank you.
Okay, any other, Adam?
As far as size of this thing goes, diameter wise, is it any bigger than other cell towers you see out by like John Deere or throughout the community? I mean, I've read your specs and it says it's going to be about 4 feet wide at the base and 18 inches at the top, but
Yeah, that's pretty much average. There is one across from the fairgrounds that's pretty representative of that. That one's a little wider at the base. I just happen to know that one because I put it in like 15 years ago. But it's pretty average. We try to keep it to a monopole, which is the slimmest design we can do. So sections of it are white, it'll look real slim in those sections. But,
thank you.
Yeah, it's pretty average.
Okay. David?
Did I hear agreement in a meeting of the minds here that as a part of, that there'd be an exchange of the height restriction for reservation of rights for the city to put emergency communications equipment on there?
That's what I'm thinking.
I heard the question.
Yeah, I know. Well, we didn't talk about it at all, so I
have to have this legal document in 2 days.
Yeah.
No, I'm just kidding.
Sorry. But anyway, if I could just say a little bit more on that, thank you, David.
Yeah.
Is that we have a good segment of our community do not like tall things going up. So this, and understood 1971, the deed restriction was placed upon the property and cell phone technology was almost, well, not even born yet. So, and I know that cell phone towers normally go over 100 feet now, typically. And it is located in an industrial zone, which we have a lot of that type activity going on. But I'd recommend myself personally that we not approve this tonight. I'm sorry about your 2 days. But I'd like to get more discussion on what it can do for the community, McMinnville specifically, but the Yamhill County in a more of a broader sense for telecommunications in case of emergency and emergency preparedness. I would just like to have more of a conversation with that. That's just me.
I do know that sitting on the YCOM board, the Dayton area out there, which this would solidify that coverage area out there, that is a weak point, and they were just looking at moving something on top of the Dayton Fire Department to try and bolster that, I guess. So I think that this would be a benefit to that if we could have rights reserved on that tower. I think it could be a benefit in that nature.
As a tenant.
As a tenant, yeah.
So I'm coming back to David and just the discussion you had. Did you get your questions answered?
I think if the council wanted to go that road, there would obviously need to be some conversations that we would have about what types of what the reservation of rights would look like and what our needs and expectations would be, what your needs and expectations would be. Look at existing language that's out there where those things have been done in the past and see what we could come up with. But we certainly wouldn't be prepared to reach any kind of agreements on that tonight, I wouldn't think.
Okay.
So.
And then any other input to us before I kind of call on where we need to go?
No, I mean, we're willing to entertain helping the city.
Okay.
How you guys can define that to me helps me make a quicker decision, so.
Great, great. JW?
Can I come up and say one thing?
Yes.
Sorry.
JW, 624 Northeast 2nd Street. It just dawned on me, you guys are giving away a right. The landowner gets a lot of money per month for the cell tower. So what you're giving away is monetary value. So it's perfectly right to ask for the emergency stuff, but you could also ask for money on a monthly basis. So it's a pretty good revenue stream.
But we don't own the property.
No, but you own the air rights. You're giving away something. So I don't see why you can't charge for that or ask for the right to put something on there. I mean, they're not going to build it if you don't do it, so you can be paid.
Right.
That's my 2 cents.
Thank you.
Our
Okay.
financial advisor, JW.
I have one other question. I'd just like Matt to comment on this from an emergency standpoint. Could you comment on it, the tower for the use of emergency purposes?
Well, I do know.
I don't know that the city would be actually using it. It'd be the county, right? Correct, if we placed
Yeah,
something?
like Wycom, their radio equipment's owned by the county, so I can't speak to that. I do know that our radios for a while out there, that is, he's correct, that is a bit of, for us out there, a dead zone. It's, for whatever reason, it lacks capacity out there, so. Yeah, but for Wycom purposes, I couldn't speak on that, on the emergency management piece, other than.
Yeah, it would be county that would make that decision, but it is good to know from your perspective, that is a dead zone, too. So.
Yeah.
Thank you, Matt and Kelly. Adam?
David, is it something that we could move forward with, providing that the city / Wycom is reserved space for emergency services?
I would prefer to see this come back, whether it's within 2 weeks or 4 weeks, once we've had a chance to identify what those needs are, to make sure that we've got language that the council's happy with, that it meets all of
Fair enough.
your interests.
Sounds good to me.
And so,
And it may be that we're not able to reach an agreement on terms, and it needs to come back to the council to consider where we are.
so again, if I could summarize, I'm hearing a direction to direct staff to negotiate the use or piece of the tower for emergency and emergency management equipment and see what that might look like. And to do that at the soonest possible timeframe, so we could be back within 2 weeks so that you could move forward given the criteria and have staff do that. So am I getting an agreement from council?
Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds
Okay.
good.
So we'll instruct staff, and who's that going to be going through? Is it
That'll be me.
David? Okay, so city attorney, Brandon, to get together, and again, a desire to get to the end as quickly as possible on your behalf and on our behalf. Thank you for your presentation this evening. Okay, with that resolution, what that does is it takes us to the advice and informational items tonight. We still have lots to do still. So I'm one that's telling you always to come prepared and keep us abreast with the commissions and the boards and committees you're on, but I'm going to forego that tonight. At this point, we are going to leave and go into executive session under ORS 192-66-2D to conduct deliberations with persons designed to carry out labor negotiations. We will keep this meeting opened, go in deliberate, to have deliberations come back. We may then have a discussion when we come back. We may not. We'll close, and then we'll go right into the Urban Renewal meeting, and I know many of you are here. Turn on your music and dance or have a good time. We'll be right back.
take it out on the next slide. So, insurance companies, I'll give it to you in a nutshell, you gotta say. Insurance companies are starting to come up with this big remediation project. You really have to spend all this money, but what does the city think, what do Oddfellows think about institutional controls? So I was tasked with, the city asked that question, and my impression passed. Now, in the past, in these other meetings, I was not highly engaged in this from but anyway, that's the issue. Would the city say, no, we want this $750,000 bunch of chemicals in the ground? Drop the levels as best you can.
I mean, I think one could make the case that that's in the best public interest, because otherwise, anytime you disturb any of that area,
which I don't know that it would change
that those post remediation, some of those would not be lifted.
Well, I don't know. See, that's a crapshoot. You know,
Right.
It's going to change. They did a pilot. It changed the readings sufficiently to be significant. But whether or not that means it isn't going to eliminate all.
No, but there's a difference between in contamination levels on how much you expose, how you treat sewer excavation,
Right.
worker protection,
Right.
those sorts of things.
So they would, if institutional controls were done, they would have to set up a fund to pay for all of that. To pay for, okay, anytime, and there'd have to be notice to anybody, okay, here's the cost, here's the training. So it's kind of an ongoing permit, okay, if this happens, you gotta cart it out to here, here's the fund to pay for it.
Right.
And, so there's, it's trying to be creative, we're doing this, this is now.
So as a property owner, though, isn't that what, and I mean, I don't know what the discussion is, but I guess maybe once your project's done, you don't expect to ever have
Well, the contamination is primarily under the existing wetlands. Parking lot where the attic is. And so now, I've been the property owner for 30 years of this project. And now I'm the property owner for the office. Which I haven't told them yet. It doesn't matter. It's a matter of liability. But so the Oddfellows, I mean, the Oddfellows, they could say, we don't care, we want it cleaned up. Or they could say, we don't really think it's ever going to be a problem, and throw some money at us for the damage done so far. Promise to continue the insurance for the future. From my perspective, I might say, oh no, I want to clean it up, because we could try to get a consent order. A consent order is like a court judgment, court ruling, basically that DEQ can't come back, or if they do, it's not on.
It's not on you or future owners.
Yeah, not on future owners. But Oddfellows and other property owners have to agree with it. And so they have to essentially say, okay, we'd like to see this completed too, but the price for that is this insurance is or DEQ can't come back. Now, it doesn't mean there can't be, it's not 100%. So
rules can change. Right. Yeah.
So now, we all have to get environmental attorneys to talk. Advise ourselves on what we think, because Oddfellows is one entity and we're one entity, and the city. Yeah. So that's where we are. And I'm about to tell them, hey, we didn't know for sure how this was going to happen, but if you do this remediation, you can solve this. You put it off for a year, now you're going to upset a hotel. So you might want to, if you're going to do it, you might want to do it now. But so, what do you foresee as a city process for the city to say, okay, we've got all this data, we know what the deal is, here's what we want.
Well, it certainly got a couple new
gotta be, go to the city council?
Well, you certainly need to bring David and Jeff into that.
Oh, those new faces, yeah. Which I can't tell, except now. They got me on the street once, and I'm not gonna let it happen again. Yeah, I know. And,
I mean, I deal with it versus any project downtown, I'm dealing with it already, right?
yeah.
Gotta deal with it. We're filed for parties, supposed to be done. Environmental due diligence.
So we're gonna, we need. Right. And everything, and if there are any notices, there's gonna be some contamination in the dirt. There's no, it's not coming from our, it's not coming from the other side. So the insurance companies want to know, well, if there's another side, you know, nobody's tested the plumes in the east. Right. You really want to do that. Right. Yeah. So you'd never go chase it forever. The reason we're doing this is because they closed this whole thing and came back 15 years later.
And then you got tucked into it.
Yeah, so we closed it. Right. In 86 or 89. And in 2000, they came back. Oh, we never really, the standards are different. Oh gosh, look at, and we're now $500,000 later. Right. 500,000, 600,000, 700,000 later. And it's still just. Yeah. Only because there's insurance. Right. It wasn't insurance. So I don't know quite how it's, anyway, that's where we are. So that's the task. If you, I think you guys probably have received, anything you want, we got it.
Okay. Yeah, honestly, I didn't have anything much to do with it until Dawn retired, and then Rich was still involved with it.
Yeah.
So my knowledge is going to be a little bit deeper than those two guys.
Well, you know, there's been like one meeting, we had one roundhouse meeting. This 2-3 years ago. Everybody maybe ought to do, maybe there ought to be a sump pump over here, maybe there ought to be this, and then that was before we got into this remediation. So the last 2 years, I've been saying, looks like there's going to be remediation, and now they're saying, there's 4 insurance companies. It's not the end of the world.
Right.
It's not, you know, it's a couple $100,000 here, a couple $100,000 here, a couple here. They're going to eat up that much, just stretching it out.
My gut tells me is the public interest would be in getting it as cleaned up as we can now, rather than.
Then the faster you say that, the better. That's, you know, so I'll provide whatever you want, whatever you want.
Yeah, I mean, no,
yeah. Major item for a client out of this. And we got all that. And I didn't say it was my client said, so why did I pay you all this money to get you here? And you didn't say anything. I said, the more I'm talking, the more trouble you're in. So be glad when I'm not talking.
Exactly. It's a good meeting for me if I don't have to say anything, right?
Yeah.
We'll get notices out, utilities tomorrow. We'll march along on that.
Well, we just last Thursday, Friday, we did it very well. And then so I go to with your says, that's great. He says, so I said, oh, I'm on board with the foundation. He says, I'll see that you get $25,000 from a San Francisco foundation. So we're right at 400,000 now. For cash. So yeah, I think they started the design, and now we're going forward on this. She'd like to pay so thank you.
A little tough, but they got through that. You know, lots of discussion on the appropriate. I remember the days in Rock, I brought that like a little more regularly.
Yeah, that was a great success all winter. There were like 30, more than 3,600 bed nights. And I hope having that managed facility would give me that much more flexibility. In fact, a lot of them like that, you know, they don't have a need to put people and operate like a family shelter. You've got to really have a building structure. But she's got a whole plan right now how to do that.
Whether people be prepared for that question might come up.
Well, I think that's, I appreciate it. So we can let them start writing our reason. All the that's not what we're about. If they haven't got a place to sleep, they won't publish. That's what the mission is. We were full and there was no place to go. But you know, even then, you start down a pretty slippery road. It's a pretty parking lot for those. How do you even monitor and control it? Inside the restaurant, you control what they bring in and what's going on. You go outside. Now, I know that they have night, they dance when you go around the middle of the night, around the block. Just to make sure what's going on. One night they found people down there speaking at 3 or 3:30 in the morning. When you got a choice, but you can go hang out somewhere, but not in this residential area. Well, wait, or just come take this over. But I appreciate very much you telling us, yeah. We'll let you know. Even without the vacation, they can do that. Now we'll have a lot more space. They were very much vacated, and that's I was there last night. Well, that's not enough. I think we have some serious. We might want to see what they're trying to do, like just stretch their money by getting all these local POs come up with half the funding. So, you might get that work in Portland where they've got a big enough population. They're doing a lot of things. You go to Albany, or go on down to what's it? You know, I guess I was never gonna get out of line, because hundreds of millions of dollars, and all the, you know, one of the things I was asking, is there really gonna be an FPO? If you were an FPO, you could, it's half the cost, you know, 160 million, half a million. And I said, but fortunately, I looked it up, I said, no, we don't qualify for an FPO, and so I don't have to answer that question. But we are in the,
I know, I mean, I only saw the slide show that we
yeah, they want the local, the FPOs to raise that. I mean, I think, I'm not sure they got a lot of these rural types of programs. If I were looking at the website, at least I can say, okay, well, you're one of those listed, you make that assessment. Get 75 or 80 million. So we're in the middle for a bunch of money. We just got to figure out how. So I was thinking about is how do you get it so that the village is, when the village is money, without that, being shovel ready, I can't get a better grade. So that's really what the, however, the good news is there's a conversation.
anything, I noticed one of the outlets was, 100 birds.
Not seeing the list. Sure, that's a lot of the. Hold on, they just don't. You know more about it than I do. They're probably too lazy to figure out what they're doing. Well, I mean, that's why they should like that. No, the answer is no. Change it, really make the list of 65 to 70 million. So that just isn't enough. So that's why they're not saying it. So it's not even what we're doing to have it. They want to double it. It sounds like Mr. Trump. Yeah, we really didn't need $1 trillion. We need 200 million. You guys don't figure out how to get the other 100.
What's your sense on how much chance it has to snowball?
They may start having to do a big asteroid, and then you start a solar. That's part of it. And then you make a big chunk of money in that. Sounds great. People in metropolitan regions say, I don't use those highways enough. Why am I going to pay all those dollars? How do you get the MPO to vote? You can't agree on this idea. Well, the legislature will oppose it. And then we'll go impose the tax for the MPO. I think they're still wondering how they go. Somewhere in the middle of this, there's going to be an offset, or this is not being said, but I think very good friend, guy that put up 25,000, and he put deals in all the time. He says, you get the deal, and he says, you want to always talk about things that everybody can agree on. You talk about those who agree and agree, and the things that you know are going to be tough. Don't ever let somebody say no too early. Wait till the very end when they're about to say no, and they say, look at all the fighting, right? Yeah. So maybe that's a strategy. At some point, we'll have them down the road so far that they can just salivate on the deal, and they'll say, well, okay, maybe we can give up something. But you can imagine coming to the locals here and saying, you just come up with half the money for a project. You're already paying gas tax on the state's half, and we're going to pick up a big chunk of the project that benefits the region. Now, maybe you're willing to put some on that. I don't know, that's going to $1. So now we probably have money in the next page to save us. But, you know, and how do you know? So maybe you might want too many things. I enjoy living. Listen, no, but you got to be patient in the newspaper. Do you know the interesting thing that went on the story when we moved from the airport from Evergreen to yeah, it was, I mean, it's really, literally a couple of years back.
Well, the other Melissa has left town.
Oh, she. Oh, so I guess we are.
You never met her? Oh, she was so I guess the city was just making a phone call.
Thank you. We've just come out of our executive session, and we will have no discussion.
The dais on executive session at this time. So I'm just going to go very quickly around with counselors. Any items that you want to bring before council before I close the council meeting? We have lost a Counselor Stassen who had kids that needed a mom because Dad's traveling. So we've lost Wendy. Alan is here and he'll be with us in just a moment. I'm just going to go to staff. Anything for the group tonight, Matt, Marcia, Scott? I know you're out in the Heather, Mike, Melissa. David?
Yes.
Good.
I have something.
Good.
McMinnville Municipal Court undertook, starting April 3rd, the beginnings of what we call a clean slate program. which is a program we're offering to individuals in the community that are delinquent with the court on fines and fees. It's a 6-month program that offers to those individuals the opportunity to pay off in full their outstanding fines and fees with the court at 50 cents on the dollar, so long as they pay the entire amount in full. We had kind of a soft rollout on this. There hasn't been a lot of publicity. We put the word out in some areas, and in April we brought in a typical month, we will see anywhere from $35,000 to $45,000 in revenues through the municipal court and fines and fees. In April, we saw roughly $60,000 come in. $19,000 of that was attributable to the Clean Slate program. So we've got 5 more months of that, and then at the end of that period, we're going to enter a new phase of a little more aggressive collections on the fines and fees. So we're offering folks an opportunity on the front end for 6 months to get good with the court before we start looking at another way of going about collecting those fees. So.
Thank you, David.
Yep.
Good to hear that. I know we had quite a bit of discussion whether this was the right time to do that. It sounds like it's doing what we've anticipated it to do. Jeff, anything for...
Nothing to report, Mayor.
Okay. With that being said, I'm going to go ahead and close our regular city council at this time. And I welcome us to opening up the McMinnville Urban Renewal Agency meeting, the 9th of May 2017, and I call the agency meeting to order. This evening, we have in front of us a resolution 2017-05, a resolution of the McMinnville Urban Renewal Board authorizing the city, McMinnville city manager or designee to enter into and manage a development agreement with the Oddfellows Building LLC for the Atticus Hotel project. And with that being said, I'm going to turn the time over to our planning director, Heather Richards. Heather?
So good evening, Mayor and City Council, in your role as the Urban Renewal Board. I'm going to invite Walt Gall to join me as well. He's the chairperson of the McMinnville Urban Renewal Advisory Committee.
Welcome, Walt.
Thank you.
So I only have 150 slides, don't worry.
Kind of like the public hearing, huh?
Oh, boy.
8 slides. Don't start cringing. All right. So before you tonight is a resolution to consider a property assistance request from the Oddfellows Building LLC for their new Atticus Hotel project. It is a recommendation coming to you from the McMinnville Urban Renewal Advisory Committee. It is for a 5-year forgivable loan for $100,000 to help them with their $8.3 million project that they're going to build in downtown McMinnville. I wanted to describe the project to you, talk a little bit about the parameters of the program in which this project is applying for funds, the recommendation in front of you, the funding that's available in the Urban Renewal Agency's funds at the moment, and what the financial forecast is for that. So in terms of a description of the project, and we do have the members of the LLC here if you have further questions for them relative to details with their project, but it's a new hotel, 36 luxury room boutique hotel, 4 stories. It will be located on the corner of 4th and Ford in downtown McMinnville, which is in the McMinnville Urban Renewal area. 23,000 square feet. The proposed budget is more or less $8.3 million. Some numbers are moving on that as they're trying to make this project work, and you'll hear a little bit more about that probably from them. It is expected to have at least 50 plus full-time jobs. They have done an analysis that shows it will have an annual economic development impact, so a multiplier in terms of funds spent in the community of $4 million. And Oddfellows LLC is the applicant for it. To qualify for the project, to qualify for the funds, the project must be located within the Urban Renewal District, which it is. It also must be new construction or substantial rehabilitation that increases the assessed values in the district and create jobs. And that's really important because that's the overall goal of an urban renewal program and tool, and is also an overall objective of the Oregon Revised Statute relative to urban renewal. It also must comply with federal, state, and local codes, which this project does. And then locally, there's a value system that it must leverage at least $4 of private dollars to every $1 of urban renewal investment. This particular request will leverage $99 to the $1. It also must address 2 or more of the urban renewal plan goals. In terms of the urban renewal plan goals, there's 5 of them. One talks to economy. The overall goal is to encourage the economic growth of the urban renewal areas, the commercial, cultural, civic, and craft industry center for McMinnville. And then that has 4 objectives underneath it that are very specific. It's to support development of the area by assisting in the financing and provision of transportation and public infrastructure improvements. It's to assist existing businesses and support the creation of new business and employment opportunities in the area, which this project does. It's to work with property owners to promote the development and redevelopment of properties within the area, which this project also does. And it's to partner with private and public entities to leverage public investment and generate private investment, which this project does as well. So it's achieving that economic goal. There's also a goal of encouraging a unique district identity, which is enhancing the physical appearance of the district. This project is very carefully designed, so although it's new construction, it fits within the historic framework and integrity of the downtown area. It's also to encourage pedestrian orientation, and this project will do that as well by building out what is currently a vacant lot with a 0 setback building footprint. It's also to encourage development of active uses such as shopping and entertainment, and in the downtown area, it's to really sort of build on that historic heritage. One of the goals is housing, which is to promote development of affordable quality housing. This project does not obviously achieve that. Another goal is historic preservation, which is relative to existing building stock and restoring those. This project does not do that either. And then the 5th goal is development and redevelopment, which is to pursue development and redevelopment opportunities that add economic, civic, craft industry, and cultural opportunities for the citizens of McMinnville, economically strengthening the urban renewal area and attracting visitors to the urban renewal area. So clearly, it's meant to achieve 3 goals, and clearly it's achieving, it has to achieve 2 goals, and it's clearly achieving 3 of the urban renewal plan goals. So the McMinnville Urban Renewal Advisory Committee reviewed the request at their 2 meetings ago, and after some dialogue and discussion there, they crafted a recommendation for you to consider, which is reflected in the resolution that's in front of you tonight. Their recommendation is a 5-year forgivable loan of $100,000 plus interest, the interest being the local government investment pool interest rate plus 1%. That's relative to the fact that the city and the agency have an agreement between themselves that if the Urban Renewal Agency ever borrows money from the city, it will pay an interest rate of local government investment pool plus 1%. So we wanted to carry that forward into this. It's to forgive that forgivable loan proportionately over 5 years based upon performance metrics. So this project's being funded because it's doing 2 things. It's increasing tax base, so that's the new improvement, new in construction. We want to ensure that that actually is successful. And then also it's bringing in that 50 plus full-time jobs as well as the annual economic multiplier for the community, that $4 million. So we want to make sure that the hotel operates successfully as well. The loan, if neither of those things are achieved, so if the project falls short in terms of construction during the construction period for some reason, or if the hotel isn't successful in operations over that 5 year, the loan will be paid back for non-performance. One of the members of the LLC will be asked to provide a personal guarantee for the loan at the time of signing, and they've agreed to do that. And then if the project is sold, so the building and property are sold in 5 years, there's full payback of the loan as well. The basis for the recommendation was that it meets the objectives of the McMinnville Urban Renewal Plan. The Urban Renewal Plan is to encourage investment in the urban renewal area to create vitality, to create tax base, to create jobs. This project clearly achieves all of those. It also creates 50+ jobs, which is a remarkable job generator for our community. It's also creating a $4 million annual economic multiplier for the community as well, which is also a tremendous economic development effort. The request is only 1.2% of the total project cost. So this program's been set up where the Urban Renewal Agency has the opportunity to fund 20% of the overall total project costs up to a maximum of $100,000. And that's to show that there's proportionate skin in the game from the developer as well. And the request here is only for 1.2% of the overall total project cost. That's really a sort of minimal request from them coming in for the agency, showing that their investment, their leverage of their private dollars are really significant towards that public investment into the project. In terms of need, there is need associated with this project because it's a hotel that also is going to have a ground floor restaurant tenant. They're financing their Small Business Administration loan cannot pay for the build out of the restaurant space. So it can't even bring that restaurant space into a vanilla shell opportunity. None of that's being financed through that loan process, and that's about $200,000. They're also working with their contractor on final costs for construction of it, and like everything else in McMinnville, the construction costs are rising and some numbers have come in larger than anticipated, and so they are working through a process of value engineering. So this $100,000 into the project will be critical for them in terms of being able to retain some amenities they want to retain for the project. There's been some discussion of funding availability. We provided a financial forecast for you in the staff report. This is a model that was put together based on some projections. So I want to caution you, these aren't exact numbers. It's actually conservative to what we see as numbers coming in today. But I think there's been some misunderstanding as to how this model reads. So I just wanted to walk you through that. The first column that says revenue, that's actually annual revenue. So revenue that we expect annually to come in with the increment. And then there's another column called fund balance. That's your beginning fund balance. So this is the actual cash flow column and not the annual revenue is not that. So when you're looking at this particular project and its impact, it will start in fiscal year 2018. The line items that we want to walk through is first, what's the beginning fund balance, which is $259,000 more or less based on this model. It's actually larger than that. We've recently discovered as we're going through the budget process. And then you add that to the projected annual revenues. That gives you a cash flow of $431,000. Then you take all the what's forecasted to be budgeted as expenditures out of that, and that leaves you with an ending fund balance for that fiscal year of $138,000. Again, a conservative number. So clearly there's cash in the bank to help support what's being proposed in front of you. We also showed how the 5-year payments of $20,000 a year, I'll talk you through what the recommendation is for that, also impacts this financial analysis by keeping it in a positive net cash flow. But the other thing it does is it allows enough cash flow to be able to respond to other projects that may come in. If, let's say there's another developer that comes with a $9 million new construction project and a request for $100,000, we want to be able to respond to them, and there is the opportunity to do so. I also want to point out to you that the model shows what we're forecasting in the budget for next year. So we've put into this model the cost of the parking study, the $25,000 that we've set aside to start the 3rd Street project in terms of a community dialogue, and that it also has an additional $80,000 in here for that property assistance program that hasn't been allocated or obligated to any other projects. So it provides opportunity for the agency to still consider other projects, be them small or large, and there's still that positive net cash flow at the end of the fiscal year. So I think there was some confusion as to that particular financial forecast and how it was represented in the staff report, and Marcia is here also to answer any questions that you may have regarding that. It is a new urban renewal district, relatively. I will tell you, I've worked for 4 different urban renewal programs, and to have a project like this come in the 4th or 5th year is something that most communities would be salivating over, because it's a new construction project, it's a significant investment, and it will generate that tax base, which will then pay for future projects as well, and the tax increment. But because it is a relatively new urban renewal area, what we wanted to do was make sure that we were really cognizant of stewardship of that cash flow. So the recommendation from MIRAC is that the Urban Renewal Agency enters into a 5-year payment plan with the city for $100,000 plus that same interest rate to pay for $100,000 of the SDCs associated with this project. So currently it's estimated, you have an estimate in your staff report, it's gone up a little bit because we know more about that restaurant that's coming in on the ground floor. It's about $111,000. So the agency will be able to pay if approved, will be able to pay $100,000 of that SDC costs. It doesn't mean that the SDCs are being waived. It's just that the agency actually is paying the city for it. So the hard dollars are still hitting the coffers in terms of those public improvement projects. But there is a provision in the city code to allow the city to enter into payment plans with other entities for the SDCs, and also to do it in a deferred payment process. So after visiting with the different utility funds and how they're impacted by this SDC deferment, the utility funds, the transportation and the wastewater utility funds are in such a place where deferring the $100,000 over 5 years does not impact any future capital improvement project planned in that time frame. However, it does allow for the agency to continue to maintain some cash flow through the process. So the recommendation is that the agency enter into that agreement with the city for 5 years to make those payments, with the first payment happening prior to the certificate of occupancy, which we expect to be issued in the next fiscal year. So with that kind of sums up the terms of the recommendation before you from MIRAC. Walt is here to answer any questions you may have of him in terms of the dialogue that happened at MIRAC and the consideration for this. And again, the members of Oddfellows Building LLC are here as well if you have questions about their project.
Okay. Heather, thank you for that concise picture of what we're trying to do. It was very helpful. Walt, anything from your perspective as the chair of the...
It's always difficult to follow Heather in making a report. I think her report was very comprehensive. We had what I believe was a thorough conversation about this project on 2 different occasions. There was, I don't want to speak for any other member, all of the voting members at the meeting where this was approved voted in favor of it. I just want to speak to you for a moment for my thoughts at the time I voted in favor of this recommendation. And those were, first, that this project obviously meets the criteria as Heather has showed and as the staff report is thoroughly documented. It was a very well-documented application. This type of application requires significant information to be provided to the city staff, and legal staff had a chance to vet that information. We received a summary form of that information in the form of an excellent staff report similar to the one that you received. The first factor that caught my eye about this project was that in our overall urban renewal plan criteria, we look to try and get at least a $1 to $4 leveraging. So for every dollar of public urban renewal money, we generate at least $4 of private money. This application is $1 to $99. I mean, it's a dream from the standpoint of leveraging of public funds. Second, It has a very high job creation factor, and when you're talking about urban renewal and economic development within an urban renewal district, creating 50 jobs with one project is a very attractive opportunity, and I felt that this was a terrific proposal from that standpoint. Third, it had a performance standard incorporated into the proposal, which was a 5-year loan that required a 5-year period of performance and only a partial forgiveness of the loan as that performance was undertaken, so that every year there would be 1/5 of that loan obligation forgiven if the performance standards set out in the development agreement were met. And I felt that was an important safeguard in terms of preserving and assuring that the urban renewal dollars would achieve the desired result. Fourth, and this was an issue that Heather commented on briefly, last year, after 5 years of going through this process, we asked that staff rehire the original consultants, Eco Northwest, that had done the original financial projections for this urban renewal plan, and take another current look. And we got that report in June of last year. The revenue projection you have is not an old revenue projection, it's a new revenue projection. It's based upon the latest current information, and it is a conservative projection which projects a level of growth that is lower than has occurred over the last 10 years, including the 2008 to 2014 period. So the assumption that goes into this revenue projection is conservative by nature. I'm comfortable that we are very, very likely to be able to perform that revenue projection, and by limiting the cost to the renewal district to only $20,000 a year, I don't believe that we're jeopardizing the ability of the urban renewal district to do other projects, which I think to me was a very important factor. Finally, and this is not actually a criteria, but to me it's important, and that is, you don't often have an opportunity with a major project like this to be able to provide support to a group of local investors who are going to produce a business that is going to retain the profit from that business in your community. It's not uncommon to have large developers come in, bring a development to you, create something that's profitable, but then those profits may end up in Chicago or New York or Seattle. This is a homegrown project. To me, that gave it a slight advantage in my view in terms of its desirability to the community. And that, again, that's not a formal criteria, but to me it was a factor in my thinking. I believe that this is a good project. We have a project going right now on Alpine Street, which is a build it and they will come project, and that takes a lot of trust and faith, and we have moved forward on that. We have a bunch of smaller renovation projects, small mini grants that we've given out, and we have 2 currently on our table that we're looking at. This is kind of the in-between. This is a major subsidy. It is taking money from the Urban Renewal District and putting it into the SDC funds of the city, both sewer and transportation. I believe those are the 2. And so it is essentially shifting city resources from one pocket to another, but by doing that, it's freeing up some resources that the developer has to be able to build a better project and a more viable project with a better chance of success. And to me, that was persuasive. So with that, I would take any questions the district board has to offer.
Thank you, Walt. Before we do that, Jeff had a comment. And
Thank you, Board Chair, members of the board. Just to add some additional context to the comments that Heather made, the McMinnville Urban Renewal District is the 7th district that I've had direct administrative involvement in. 4 of those districts have aged out of existence. 1 is in its 11th year. 1 is in its 7th year. This will be the first new construction $8 million project that any of those districts that I've been involved in will have seen. So it's unique in my experience.
thank you, Jeff. With that being said, I'm going to open it up to the board for questions of Heather or Walt at this point. Kevin?
Yeah, this is a pretty exciting project. A few questions that I have. At what point did the developers approach the city for these funds, and or did we go to them saying this is an opportunity? How did this come about?
The city, the MURAC became aware probably 6 or 7 months ago that this might be coming. It was confidential at that time as to what project was developing, and we were not privy to that. But we did get rumblings that there was something on the horizon that was fairly major, and that it might be coming to the committee for support. It came, I think, the first that we had a more specific knowledge of it from my standpoint was when Heather and myself met with a couple of the ownership people probably 3 to 4 months ago, as I recall. We've had 2 meetings where they made an initial presentation that was about what would be coming, and then a formal presentation was made in April, and we acted at that time. You had previously, we could not act earlier than that because you had not adopted a loan grant program that we were discussing for some months and then came back to you for adoption, and you did pass the resolutions. So we had then the availability of this program to be able to take action.
And if I may add, I think that loan discussion happened when we saw a gap in our looking down the road, because we knew we were looking at Alpine Avenue, but we had no interim program in place from a loan standpoint. And Heather, with her experience, says, we've got to have this shorter term plan. And I think that's when we started to look more deeper into a vision of what that might look like in the shorter term.
I think that's a good description.
Yeah. So MURAC was having discussions about the need to expand the property assistance program per the plan in work sessions during the MURAC meetings. The development team learned about that and then started having discussions with us about their potential development. They officially applied for it on March 17th.
My second question is around the capital for this project. Do they need this money? I mean, if we say no, is it not going to happen? Or is it just, I don't understand why we would even be entertaining this, honestly, because if they have the money to build it, then why would they need our money to help them build it? Because we could be using that money someplace else.
So I think it's best to ask them that question, but I guess I would say from a program perspective, the criteria for the program itself is demonstrating need is always tough, especially when you're talking about the last stopgap financing on an $8.5 million project, because if you have to value engineer $100,000 out, you figure out how to do that. But it also compromises the integrity of the project to value engineer out. So when talking about the stopgap financing to make a project move forward, one of the things Urban Renewal wants to do is to ensure that the project is successful. So if there's a need in terms of making sure the amenities remain in the project that are going to put it over the hump to really make it that economic generator, that's one prescribed need. If the other need is to make sure it's not overburdened with debt as it starts its operations so that it can operate successfully in those first couple of years where most new businesses are in a very vulnerable position, that's also serving that need as well.
But what's on the table is what percentage of the overall budget?
1.2%.
Yeah, I don't see how that's gonna. That's gonna be gone in a day. I don't see how that for a project of that size. I just don't get it.
Let me just give you, my reaction to that in this way. I would expect on our committee that we will and over time will receive proposals mostly from non-local sources that come to us and say, if you don't support our project, we're not going to build it. And that's going to be a very common statement. And that threat of not moving forward if you don't provide the level of support that they are in a sense demanding is not. It's not that it's unusual. It's just that it's a little disheartening when you compare it to the commitment of people who may have to struggle but are committed to moving forward and are simply asking for your help. And so when I look at that contrast, which one do I want to help more? I want to help the one that I think is more committed, not the one that I believe is more dependent.
All right, thanks.
Any other questions?
Who are the partners and the investors in this? Are they in the audience?
Yes.
And we'll have an opportunity
All
to.
4 of them are here.
Alan?
Thank you, Mayor. Just one quick question. You alluded to it, Heather, and you stated something about another 9, excuse me, allergies. Another $9 million project coming into town, and I think you alluded to it too, Walt, of what would be the response to another $9 million project coming into town, requesting the same $100,000 grant loan situation? What would be the response to that?
So so first of all, I think we should all do a little happy dance if that was coming in the next couple of years, because much like the city manager said, these are very, very rare opportunities. When the happy dance is done, then it's the same sort of vetting, which is it achieving the urban renewal criteria? At what level is it achieving those criteria? So 50-plus jobs, a $4 million economic multiplier. I mean, I don't know if Jody is still here or not, but working in economic development, if you think about how the Governor's Strategic Reserve Fund and Enterprise Zone, I mean, all the tools for economic development that are available in the state to capture companies and create jobs, there is much more than $100,000 being thrown at a 50-plus job generator and a $4 million annual multiplier. That's, honestly, in that scheme over here. So I would say that we would vet it through that same process of what is the benefit to the community? What is it doing to achieve the urban renewal plan? What's the long-term benefit? So this is a hotel in operation with a pretty major investment done by a local team, as Walt just described. So the risk in terms of the long-term sustainability and its commitment to the community is lower that they're going to stay here and operate that in this community.
I want to say I agree with what Heather said. I also want to say that each project has to stand on its own and is a separate calculation and a separate assessment. And I can't say that I would be as enthusiastic about another $9 million project, but if we could achieve a similar leverage of public funds, I would have to take a very serious look at consideration for approval of that.
Thank you.
Jeff?
So I guess one of the things that I would observe is we'd love to have that problem in front of us. We'd love to have a series of $5 to $10 million private sector investments to talk about in the context of the community's first urban renewal district. So I would welcome that challenge. I will tell you that the typical philosophy around these sorts of programs with respect to urban renewal is that the support and the incentivizing of early projects is money better spent than late-in projects. You have to recognize that first-in projects are taking a greater risk than last-in projects, or in some cases, projects that were on the boards already before an urban renewal district was started. So in this particular case, I think this project fits those criteria. I think it's exactly in alignment with the program that this board has previously adopted, and I'd look forward to wrestling with 3 or 4 more of these in the next 5 or 10 years.
I couldn't have said it better.
Any other comments for Heather or for Walt? Okay. Go ahead, Adam.
Initially, I was worried about it constraining dollars, but with how you guys presented it, those concerns for myself have been alleviated, and I appreciate your presentation and all your input.
Sure.
Thank you, Adam. Okay, if no other, thank you for your presentation. To help Kevin, let me just introduce by a raise of hand. Aaron Stevenson is a principal Rob Stevenson is a principal, Brian Shea is a principal, and Jeb Ladine. So that is the Oddfellow LLC. Says, now, what I'd like to do at this point is we have written testimony that was received by the board today from the Odd Fellows Building LLC, but I turn to that group, and would anyone like to address the committee? Aaron? And again, given the lateness of the hour, I'd like to limit our presentations to 5 minutes, okay?
Absolutely. And do I need to sign in, Mr. Mayor, for an urban renewal?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. So thank you so much for entertaining our request. And I think that Heather and Walt did a really terrific job giving you an overview of the project. I have a 110-page business plan with miles and miles of data, and I could frankly talk to you tonight for hours about the Atticus and how excited we are about it and how excited we are about this project for McMinnville. But I would rather answer your questions specifically about the project and entertain anything you'd like to hear from us specifically about it.
Well, I'm going to start out, Aaron, because one of the criteria that I have in looking at this is your background and the proven experience that you have. And so if you could let the board know a little bit of what you've been doing in town, because I think it parlays a little bit with the uniqueness of what you're building and what you're trying to accomplish and understanding a need out in the marketplace.
Absolutely. So 7 years ago, actually this month, my husband and I opened Third Street Flats, which is a boutique lodging company in downtown McMinnville, with our first location at our historic McMinnville Bank building, which now we would describe that as being above the Bitter Monk. We renovated 4 historic apartments and started renting them out on a nightly basis in what we would describe as a fusion lodging experience. And that business took off out the gate. We were very excited to start a business during an economic downturn and still see it be very successful. After about a year and a half, the business was so busy that we decided to sell half of it, and I took on my partner, Brian. And Brian and I together own Live McMinnville LLC. 2 years after that, we formed a second LLC with my dad and bought the Oddfellows Lodge and opened up 7 more flats in that building. So we now operate 11 luxury nightly apartment rentals in downtown McMinnville. At the present time, we represent the most expensive lodging that is available in downtown McMinnville, and we host people from all over the country, all over the world. Primarily, they're here for wine tourism. We see some amazing people, and it's been a wonderful experience for us. One thing that we have noted, though, is that as an essentially self-service property, there is really an unmet need in our community. Wine tourism attracts a very high wage individual. We've got a lot of data that backs that up. And while our Third Street Flats product is a fabulous product, it really caters to independent travelers. Neither of our buildings have elevators, and we don't have 24-hour on-site staff. We partner with our Stewart Wine Bar to distribute our keys and serve as our concierge at our Oddfellows building. We have the same partnership with the Bitter Monk at our historic McMinnville Bank building. But we recognize that there is an unmet need for McMinnville. And when it comes to a full-service lodging option, McMinnville doesn't have that right now. There is no lodging here that meets the need of a buyer who's coming to buy $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 of wine over a weekend and really is looking for a full-service experience with concierge, valet, room service, and all of those amenities. So Data also suggests that a guest, an overnight visitor, spends 3 times as much in your community as a day tripper. So while those wine buyers and those wine tourists are coming through McMinnville, maybe grabbing lunch, doing some wine tasting, they're being forced to spend the night right now in Portland or Newburgh because McMinnville doesn't have lodging on offer that meets their very specific needs. I know for a fact we have at 3rd Street Flats hosted some very, very high net worth individuals who don't mind our staircases and don't need that fully catered experience, but we have a strong belief, and we have market analysis to back it up, that suggests that there is an unmet need in our community right now, and we intend to meet that need in a way that we feel really fits McMinnville, and that is with a 36-room boutique hotel in downtown McMinnville. Code would have allowed us to build a 120-room hotel on that site, but that really wasn't the vision that we had for the project. It didn't feel right for McMinnville or for us and what we want to offer our guests, which is a really personal experience where we help our guests at the Atticus feel a sense of connection to our community. And I could talk a lot about all of the local partnerships we have lined up, about all the local products that we're going to be featuring in the hotel, but I really do feel like that we are going to offer something very special, and that our 7 years of experience in the lodging business has taught us a lot. It's taught us a lot about what makes a vacation rental business successful, and it's taught us a lot about the gaps in McMinnville in terms of the lodging marketplace.
Okay, our 5 minutes is up, but thank you, because I thought that was important, going along with what Walt says, local ownership, but also understanding the marketplace. So what I'm going to do right now is would anyone else from the Odd Fellows Building LLC like to address any other questions or a presentation?
I still have just one question.
Okay.
I want to be really supportive of this, and I'm open to these loan agreements and the whole concept, but I'm just curious, like, do you really need the money? Are you going to be able to leverage this for additional money, or is it just kind of a cushion?
I actually, while Heather and Walt were taking that question, I was kind of jumping in my chair back there because I really wanted to answer that myself. So we're working with a construction company, R&H Construction out of Portland, and we've been designing our plans with R&H from the beginning. So it's in essence a design-build project. They've given us 4 price sets on this project while we were designing it to make sure that we were designing a building that fit our budget and fit our needs. The last price set we got before we received our bids was in November. Between the November price set, which represented complete construction plans, we've made no additions between November and March when we went out for bid. Drywall alone went up by $189,000 between November and March. Not our drywall is $189,000. Our drywall increased by $189,000. So the marketplace right now is one where we're seeing huge increases. When you ask me what $100,000 means to this project, it means a lot to this project. It means paver stone parking lot instead of an asphalt parking lot. It means beautiful flower baskets on the exterior of the building. I've spent the last 2 weeks parsing every dollar in this project down to amounts in the 500, and I could very quickly tell you exactly what $100,000 does mean to us. We're also very grateful for the support of the Small Business Administration, but it did leave gap financing for us because we don't own the restaurant in the building. They will not fund any portion of that construction. So to answer your question, Kevin, it's a great question. It's an important question. And yes, there is real need within this project as we are dealing with a marketplace where construction costs are exploding, and we do have a set loan amount from the bank. So there is real need, and the dollars will make a real tangible difference within this project.
I appreciate that, and I do have absolute confidence in you and in the team that you're working with to make this work. And I really appreciate the way you've explained that to me. And the reason why I was asking, and I think you understand, that if somebody comes to me with $8 million and asks for $100,000, I'm thinking we have $8 million. If there's another company out there that they have only $100,000 and they need another $100,000, they might have a greater need.
Absolutely.
But I catch the vision of what you want to do, and I think clearly the return on this investment as far as property tax value is significant. So you've won me over, but just that's why I was asking those questions.
Thank you. It's a great question to ask. And I really think this is such an important dialogue for us to have as a community. It's the first time we're going through this, and I think they're all great questions. We appreciate them.
And I just, thank you, Aaron, but I do want to remind board members of the Renewal Agency that we ought to stay focused on the criteria of the loan, which that question was not a part of the criteria. So we're not evaluating we're looking at the criteria that we passed in the loan program. And again, it gave clarity. I think it's really important, but we do have a set of criteria that we're looking at. I just want to remind everyone on.
This isn't really like a land use thing, though. We can decide not to honor that. I mean,
Right.
I don't think we need to be tied to that
Well,
criteria.
I understand that, but at the same token.
If they meet the qualifications, then yeah, we could give the money, but we could always not give them the money.
Oh, absolutely. But again, we set the criteria.
Right.
Okay.
Mayor, can I address,
Go ahead.
since nobody else is going to come up here? To Aaron, can you describe briefly the streetscape that's going to be going in, which sidewalk, curb and gutter, expanded corner, landscaping, tree wells, anything like that, that would actually, you guys need to fund and then dedicate to the city?
That's a really great question, and our landscape plan is currently still under review, but the pictures up on the screen give you a good perspective of what we've got going. There's a landscape area, if you look at the bottom right photo to the far left, that this is actually an older set of photos. The design is much further along now, and so we've got a really lovely landscaped section there. Within the parking lot, we're really fighting hard to maintain the paver stone. You know, that's one of the items that has been under discussion this week. We think it'd be a beautiful addition to downtown McMinnville. In the long run, we'd also look to that space potentially as outdoor event space in the summer. We do also have benches that we're including. We have a valet stand that will be on that exterior piece. I believe that the awnings featured in this picture don't actually meet the downtown design standard. They were from an earlier phase, but we do have really lovely awnings on the building as well. I know that there is discussion about the downtown landscape plan, and we are absolutely open to all of the conversations. We would love for this to be a feature of downtown McMinnville and what downtown McMinnville can look like from an exterior landscape design standpoint. And we're excited for that opportunity to make this a real showpiece.
Okay, but you've got to go in and replace curbs, sidewalks.
We do, yes,
everything
that's
like that.
correct.
That's in your budget.
That is in our budget, and that is part of the plan, absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Any other discussion?
I got one.
Go ahead, Adam.
This is more from a concerned citizen point of view, but parking. So I realize that you're within the zone that you don't have to provide parking spaces, but it's currently a parking lot. You had 36 rooms and you had 50 employees. That's a lot more cars. Where do you envision all these cars to be parked at?
So that's a really great question, and I will tell you that at every presentation I have done, whether we were set to talk about parking or not, parking comes up, and it's another one of those really great dialogues for us to have. I remember when I was a kid growing up in McMinnville, and 3rd Street had a 50% vacancy rate, and there was lots of parking because nobody wanted to come to downtown McMinnville. And kudos to the people in the room who had the vision in the 80s and the 90s to revitalize 3rd Street and make it a place that people are crawling to get into now, which is a really wonderful thing for our community. So you're correct, our project is within the no parking requirement zone. In fact, we were having this conversation today. Our hotel consultant said, you know, this is a wonderful thing, you know, you don't have to spend any money on parking, you should not spend any money on parking. And we said, no, you know, we really want to build as much parking as we're able to build on the site Because this parking lot in particular is controlled by our valet, it's got 10 parking spots in it, but we can actually stack cars, so we can put 13 cars there. We've got 2 more spots in front of the hotel for valet, so we have 15 there total, and then we're leasing additional off-site parking spots to meet the rest of our needs. So we aren't being required by the city to provide parking, but we really feel that parking is an important issue. We want to take care of it for our guests. We want to do our part within the city of McMinnville, and so we are providing parking for the guests at the hotel. Parking studies also show that, and we see this with our own guests right now at 3rd Street Flats, that a hotel guest will do absolutely anything to not put their car in a 2-hour parking spot because they're here for 24, 48 hours or longer, and they don't want to go move that car. So even if we weren't to provide the parking, much like McMinnville's, I think the hotel guests would avoid our retail parking spots in downtown McMinnville. As to the employees of the hotel, which is another great question, as a community, I'm really happy that McMinnville has kicked off a parking study because it is an issue as we continue to grow, as we continue to attract downtown businesses. We do have to look at the long-term parking needs, and those employees absolutely will need parking spots in downtown McMinnville. We feel like we have obviously more than met the requirement by providing spaces for all of our guests. If we're able to provide lease enough additional spaces for our own employees, we'll absolutely do that. That has to do with the supply that is on the market. But we will do everything that we can to provide that need. And we are heartened that the city is taking a hard look at parking as an overall issue. It's an important thing.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
You bet.
Okay, any other questions for Aaron? Aaron, thank you for answering the questions, and thank you, Oddfellows Building LLC, for your being here and supporting what we're trying to accomplish in our discussions tonight. I'd like to read into the record, we received a letter from Mark Davis dated May 5th, and I think each of you have received a copy of that. Mark addresses 6 areas of his concern. Many of those concerns have been addressed tonight, so I just want to make sure that that is mentioned for the record. At this point, I would like to open it up for anyone that would like to address the board. JW? And again, no, but we are going to limit it to 5 minutes, so put it in fast gear. Welcome.
Thanks. It's past my bedtime. J.W. Milligan. I reside in an office at 624 Northeast 2nd, P.O. Box 1610. I do have a letter I'll give you. Dear Mayor Hill and members of the council and the Urban Renewal Committee, I'd like to testify against the gift of $100,000 in taxpayer money free of charge to the Atticus Hotel. As I've stated in the past, I am not against urban renewal or the proposed hotel development. I would suggest that if the city's determined to help the Atticus, that you consider instead granting a true non-forgivable loan. The Urban Renewal Committee cannot give away free money. The stated purpose of the McMinnville Urban Renewal is to provide an ongoing source of GAP financing. GAP financing is often referred to as a bridge loan or intermediate financing until full funding can be obtained or until project achieves significant cash flow. In any case, it's still a loan to be paid back to the lender. What the city is offering to the Atticus amounts to a grant for a for-profit entity disguised as a loan. The only circumstance which a loan is not forgiven upon completion is if the Atticus fails to hold up its end of the bargain in delivering jobs, which, given the vague criteria relayed to me, it appears that this would only happen if the Atticus is a complete failure. If the Atticus is successful, the city taxpayer will never see the $100,000 so-called loan repaid. Nowhere in the city's urban renewal project, in the urban renewal loan grant application, is the word free money there. There's no grant, it all refers to loan, and I would suggest that you read these tenets in here. and there's no provision to convert to free money. The Urban Renewal Program was set up to offer true loans, not grants of free money. How can the city give so generously give away taxpayer money to a for-profit entity when it's not allowed to? In addition, no project finance is provided or proof of need. Through a public request, I made a public request of records. The city has refused to release any financial pro formas, appraisal, or market analysis for the project. When giving away taxpayer money, transparency in financing, accounting, and planning is standard nationwide. I have no clue about the $4 million multiplier, the 50 jobs, any of that stuff. None of that has been provided to the public. As a local example, nonprofit subsidized housing projects are required to disclose the detailed finances information in public documents. Given the city's refusal to release this information, I can only conclude that the city is either improperly withholding or never requested them from the Atticus in the first place. Why is a for-profit hotel, which has produced mostly low-wage, low-skilled jobs, receiving preferential treatment, especially given that nonprofit housing projects are arguably more needed and yet face more hurdles to receive a fraction of the financing? I'd also urge the city not to play favoritism. Pay attention to the criteria. It is clear to me that there's a conflict of interest here. The owners of the News Register, for instance, hold 25% ownership of the project and the LLC. As an important player in the McMinnville politics, it is even more important that standard disclosures of finances, general transparency, and public discussion of this project be preserved in keeping with McMinnville's principles and values. If this project is to go forward, and I do believe that it should, then it should be done right, in the light of day or not at all. Also, the planned use of the funds is ineligible for city grants. Tenant improvement projects are not eligible for city funds in this format. I think you've seen it already, a testimony that they would be used for tenant improvements. According to the staff report, the Atticus Hotel has received financing for the entire project. Again, none of that information is provided, with the exception of tenant improvements for the planned restaurant space, which is estimated at $200,000. As a former commercial real estate agent, I say this is normal. Once a hotel has signed a lease for its restaurant space, it would go to the bank for a loan. It would in most cases split the cost 50-50. It is clear that the city is proposing to finance a specific aspect of the project which is ineligible. It's specifically ineligible in the grant program. Any city grants fund would have to be specifically precluded from this purpose. Also in the project, funds have to be available for this. The McMinnville Urban Renewal Program criteria for loans is very clear. All loans under this program are subject to the availability of program funds. As in Mark Davis's letter, there is no money available for this. It also would crowd out future years. In the forecast, it shows, if you look at the next year, $20,000 for grants. All of it would go to the Atticus Hotel for the last 4 years. There's no criteria established for use of taxpayer funds. Taxpayer money,
30 seconds.
okay, it's not limited. Taxpayers throughout the city have spent substantial sums of money to promote and protect the McMinnville downtown, and that is why the hotel is there in the first place. There are other needs down there, such as road improvements, underground utilities, sidewalks, environmental remediation, parking, and protection of many of the unreinforced historic structures that are downtown that you heard this morning. Hopefully that's 5 minutes.
Thank you. Any questions for JW at this point? Thank you.
Thank you.
Discussion among committee members. Hearing none.
Maybe we should. For me, it's a wonderful project. I think that they're well qualified for the grant loan, and it's a good tool for the motivation of this investment. Because no matter what their financial situation is, it's still a monumental risk to go in and invest $8 or $9 million in our downtown. So it's a risk that this LLC is willing to take because they have confidence in McMinnville. And they've got some experience, and that confidence in McMinnville goes a long way, I think, with me, to where we can expect success. We want success. We want them to be profitable. And I don't think it's about profitability. It's about the re-energizing of a certain area of our city that needs help. And this goes right along with all the direction that we've been trying to put together for the last few years. And this is just a remarkable project that's been alluded to many times. Myself personally, I couldn't think of a better way to renew McMinnville is to create structures like this. And yes, I'm all for the subsidy or the motivation to carry it forward and almost be as a partner with the group, and to where we're all working synergistically, if you want to call it that, mutually beneficial, and to move forward into a bright future. And I think this is a great start here. So I'm all for it. I'm all for the $100,000 grant. So
Thank you, Alan. If I may, I just wanted to share just a thought. I'm a non-voting member unless I have to break a tie, so if I want to get a word in edgewise, I've got to do it now. I remember back when we started as a council talking about urban renewal, and it was something that we really wanted to investigate, but we didn't know much about. And we took a 6 to 8 month period of training ourselves and understanding from the very kindergarten level up to advanced degree by the time that we were finished. And we came as a group and said, this is something we needed to do. We hit a perfect storm in that when we were prepared and we went out for the urban renewal, we did our study, we hit a low value of property. And that's a great time to be able to do what we've done. Now, I've read a number of things where we've seen the increase in the income that's coming in has been through appreciation. Well, again, we did it right, okay, because the appreciation's given us about a 14.5%, 15% growth since the urban renewal has been put into place. Now, the other piece is I've had an opportunity to serve on the downtown improvement area that turned into our urban renewal advisory committee, and I've been there for almost every discussion meeting on a monthly basis, and I can tell you that when this project came, I did as Jody, or I know it was Heather, I did the happy dance because it hit the criteria. It truly did. Local ownership with a proven track record of this is something that we needed. I can't think of a better way of utilizing urban renewal dollars, of having a project so early on that pays us back within 2 years. At $60,000 a year, it pays us back. Now, again, it takes away from our 30 million, but we can change the parameters of the urban renewal at some point if we want to. If we see things going faster, Heather's told us about opportunities that she's been involved in times in her past. So again, I come back and say that from my perspective of one that's been in almost every meeting and discussion, non-voting, so I just get to listen, but it hits criteria. And then the last thing that's outside of the criteria, but I want to talk a little bit about, another real critical passion of mine is our TLT, and we went through that same process. And here we have an opportunity in 2018 to see about $200,000 coming in TLT monies that are going to allow us to promote our community. in one year, 200,000, and it's going to allow us to do some things. So here I come back, and it's not a criteria, but it's an aspect that is going to allow us to showcase our community even more by doing what we do. So those are my thoughts, just from an outside perspective. Any other comments?
I can add something too.
Go ahead, Adam.
Coming into tonight, I did have concerns and reservations about certain aspects of it, but overall was excited for the project and what it brings to the downtown core. And after listening to everybody present, those concerns have been alleviated, and I'm in full support of it with Alan.
Okay, thank you. Did you have any other?
Yeah, I'd just like to state publicly that, well, first of all, JW, thank you for your remarks, but I am completely satisfied with the disclosure, transparency, the integrity of the advisory committee. I think it's gone along very openly. I think there's criteria is met, and I think the criteria may change through the years too, depending on what the needs are.
Yeah.
But as far as some of the points that JW raised, I'm very confident that it's gone the way it should go with integrity and openness, and so I'm in full support of it. So,
Thank you,
I've sat in on the meetings. I feel it fully meets the criteria. I think for the level of risk and everything that they are taking on, that it's a small thing that we do to approve this.
Well, thank you for the testimony, those that are out in the audience, every one of you. I'm then going to ask for a motion to approve resolution number 2017-05, a resolution of the McMinnville Urban Renewal Board authorizing the McMinnville City Manager or designee to enter into and manage a development agreement with the Odd Fellows Building LLC for the Atticus Hotel project.
so moved.
Second.
It has been moved by Councilor Rudin and seconded by Councilor Garvin. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed by saying nay? Hearing none, this resolution is passed unanimously. With that, we are to a point where we will conclude the meeting of the Urban Renewal Agency meeting this evening. Thank you.
We're done?